Chapter 1158. The descendants of the gods in the clouds, who were not convinced, also began to think about it. In fact, they understood this problem very well. Their father could protect them for a while, but he could not protect them forever. However, the overall environment of the descendants of the gods was depraved and lazy. They were born to be the peak mortal fairies, and if they performed well, they were destined to be the successors of the gods. They had no pursuit in their life, so they lacked the motivation to work hard. Although they knew that they might face life and death in the future, because those things were too far away and too unrealistic, they could not feel nervous and could not get the motivation to work hard. Perhaps you will say that I will never leave the Great Eastern Alliance. In the alliance of 100 gods, where did the demons come from and where did the ferocious enemies come from? Suyu said in a powerful voice, and his mouth was full of cold mockery. Open your eyes and see, is the Great Eastern Alliance really a bright holy land, a carefree paradise? In the eastern region of the Xing River, there were 10 independent cavern worlds in the past 100 years. What about now? 10 were destroyed. Do you know how close the nearest independent cavern world is to the paradise in your heart? 2 months. As long as 2 months, the demons entrenched there will be able to send troops. Perhaps you will say that the Great Eastern Alliance has the protection of the 100 gods, and the demons can't attack. Then, what if the demons are all out? Can the Great Eastern Alliance still hold? Maybe you will say that if the demons come at us with all their forces, we will take precautions in advance. If one man holds the pass against 10,000 enemies, the demons won't be able to leave. Suyu sneered. But what if you don't have time to prepare? Haven't you ever thought about what it means when all the independent cavern worlds are dead? Are the demons really just simply devouring the creatures inside? This time, not only the descendants of the gods, but even the gods at the top of the world heard a little bit of awe. This means that even if the entire demon race comes out, you can't know the news in the first place, because the independent cavern worlds along the way are all destroyed. No one will send you a message. Let me ask, when the demons are only 2 months away from you, will you have time to prepare? The Great Eastern Alliance is such a big alliance. How long will it take to recruit soldiers from various cavern worlds? Is 2 months enough? Suyu asked. The descendants of the deities tensed up. The Great Eastern Alliance had to be fully mobilized. How could it take less than a year or two? 2 months. The cavern world at the edge of the continent didn't have enough time to react. How long will it take to recall the wandering gods? Is 2 months enough? The hearts of the descendants of the deities throbbed. Currently, more than half of the deities on the continent were out traveling. The latest ones would take 1 or 2 years, and some would even take up to 10 years to return. At that time, the gods were besieged by the gods of the demon race, and couldn't even take care of themselves. Who would come to save you? Heaven or earth? If you yell at the devil that you're not convinced, will he be scared shitless? In an instant, the world fell silent. In the sky and on the ground, apart from Suyu's voice, there was no other sound. If I were a demon, I would be letting myself down if I didn't attack now. Suyu sighed deeply. The more information he collected and the more he analyzed, the more he felt that the Great Eastern Alliance, which seemed to be prosperous, was in a precarious situation. The destruction of the independent cavern world was by no means a coincidence. It was the demon race's plan to cook the frog in warm water. When the Great Eastern Alliance reacted, everything would be over. However, his words carried little weight, and he was worried that he could not reach the gods. He could only reprimand Burui today and point out the shortcomings of the Great Eastern Alliance. The news was blocked, and the enemy did not know that the enemy had arrived. The forces were scattered, and the enemy took advantage of the situation to attack. I am afraid that the respective cavern world would only have time to fight their own battles and be swallowed by the demons one by one. The gods had not returned, and the demon gods had joined forces. Not only was the individual strength of the demon gods far stronger than that of the ordinary races, but they also had an absolute advantage in number. When the gods were destroyed, the Great Eastern Alliance would basically become the mouth of the demon race. However, the biggest drawback was that they were comfortable and had no sense of crisis. It was clear that the demons were close at hand, and the crisis could break out at any time, but they placed their hopes on the gods. When the danger came, they buried their heads in the sand, thinking that if they could not see it, the danger was equivalent to no danger. Even though Bu-Rui was unruly, Su-Yu's words were reasonable, and he could not help but be dissatisfied. Many descendants of the gods were even more alert. Among them, except for Yang Tai, who had a huge information network, few descendants of the gods would pay special attention to this, let alone analyze it. Because there were gods above their head. They were not anxious, so why should they be anxious? What they didn't know was that the gods had been anxious for a long time. This child has revealed the true situation of our Great Eastern Alliance. I wanted to hide it from the creatures of the Great Eastern Alliance, but now it seems that I can't hide it anymore. A god sighed. As a god, how could they not know everything that Su-Yu said? Even if they did not know the intention of the demons to swallow the independent cavern world along the way one by one, it should have been clear later. They had been preparing in secret to strengthen the information network. The business intelligence network of the all-access merchant god had the effect of monitoring the demons. However, because it crossed the entire galaxy, the transmission of information was slow, and the time to know the movements of the demons in advance was no more than a year. At the same time, they also began to secretly recall the gods as early as 10 years ago. As a result, 30 gods had not replied so far, and most of the gods who responded were on their way back. The nearest one would take a year, and the farthest one would still take 10 years to come back. If the demons really attacked, everything would go according to Su-Yu's expectations. First of all, the remaining 50 gods would be crushed by the number and strength of the demons. Then, each cavern world would fight separately and be defeated by the demons one by one. Then, the alliance of the gods, which had illuminated the galaxy for millions of years, would turn into darkness and become a dead land. The Great Eastern Alliance was indeed in crisis, and the gods had long been under pressure. In order to appease the people and not cause panic, they hid it. Now, it was revealed by Su-Yu. It is said that this man is smart, and sure enough, if he had come to the Great Eastern Alliance a few decades earlier, maybe we would not have been so passive. A god looked at the Jing deity and exclaimed. Except for the Jing deity, who was supporting Su-Yu, the other gods were supporting Bu-Rui. At first, the Jing deity also felt a little isolated and very boring. When he heard this, he couldn't help but feel happy, as if Su-Yu had won face for him. Well, Su-Yu is proficient in calculation and resourcefulness. You can't help but admire him. The Jing deity praised. This was a compliment, but it was from the bottom of his heart. Heh. His strength is also amazing. 10 real dragon spirit veins have been transplanted into his body. To be precise, 10 prospective deities' dragon tendons have been transplanted into his body. No wonder the dragon form technique is so powerful. Another deity was impressed by Su-Yu's strength. The situation that was thought to be one-sided was really one-sided, but it was Bu-Rui who was on the losing side. Many gods praised Su-Yu. If Su-Yu had defeated Bu-Rui, they would not have done so for the sake of the sword god. What really moved them was Su-Yu's words. There were countless heroes in the Great Eastern Alliance, but there were very few who were as sober as him. Naturally, it was inevitable that they would appreciate it. Many of the gods who had been disgusted by him because of the gods he had kidnapped back then also nodded slightly and gave him a look of approval. At this moment, the sword god moved. In a flash, the sword god came to Su-Yu and Bu-Rui. Su-Yu nodded lightly and loosened his foot. Bu-Rui stood up awkwardly, lowered his head, and said nothing. Have you learned your lesson? The sword god said indifferently. Burui's lips were slightly pursed and he lowered his head. His defeat, coupled with a sharp argument, finally dispelled his arrogance. The eyes of the sword god, hidden under the divine light, moved slightly and flashed with a bit of relief. Burui's shortcomings in his swordsmanship, as the sword god, how could he not see them? However, no matter how much advice he gave, Burui was proud and arrogant. He was proud of his amazing talent and disdained to pay attention to it. As a result, his swordsmanship had reached its current level. In addition, relying on the sword god, he was rampant and no one dared to wake him up until today. After you go back, do a good retreat. I understand. Burui bowed his head, gritted his teeth, and bowed to Suyu. Thank you, Feather God, for your guidance. After saying this, he broke through the air and flew away. Suyu and the sword god were left on the field, and many gods were secretly worried about Suyu. Just now, Suyu stepped on Burui to the ground and deliberately humiliated him. As a father, it was hard to say what the sword god would do. Suyu, as a father, I should pay a tooth for a tooth. How you treat my son, I will treat you the same way. The sword god said lightly. Hearing this, the Jing god immediately came and stared at the sword god. Although he was not the opponent of the sword god at all, sitting back and watching Suyu being punished would not destroy their plan. However, as a sword god, I am very glad that you treated him like this today, so that he can have a chance of survival in the future war between humans and demons. The sword god showed a faint kindness and raised his hand to take out a pill full of divine light. This is a heaven soul pill. It will benefit your soul. Consider it my reward. The sword god was worthy of being one of the 9 gods. At a glance, he saw that Suyu was facing a breakthrough in the soul. Suyu thanked him. Thank you, sword god. The sword god nodded. Well, take it on the spot. This pill contains my divine light. The longer it leaves me, the weaker the effect. Without thinking, Suyu took it on the spot. This move won a good impression from the sword god. Aren't you afraid that there is a problem with the pill? Suyu asked. If the sword god wants to do something to me, do you still need to rely on the pill? Oh, interesting boy. The sword god chuckled. See you tomorrow at the Carnival of All Gods. After that, he returned to the peak of the world and reunited with several gods. Sword god, this boy is witty and smart. Now he is the agent of the Crane God Cavern world. It is better to let him participate in our discussion about killing the demons. The sword god nodded. Yes, but wait until the end of the Carnival of All Gods. Chapter 1159. However, the crowd that came to watch the battle today was complicated. They might be prospective deities from some cavern world, so he didn't think too much about it. Boy, I'm leaving too, the Jing deity said. Suyu nodded. He didn't want the Jing deity to participate in the annihilation of the prospective deities of the Netherworld faction. Once he caught the 2 prospective deities, with the power of the gods, he would learn that they came from the family of the book deity, and then learn that the agreement between him and Xing Yuanxin was about Qin Ku's case, not the Carnival of All Gods that he was concerned about. It was not difficult to imagine how angry the Jing deity would be if he learned that he had been deceived and killed him. There was no guarantee that he wouldn't do something bad to Suyu. The anger of a god was 1,000 times more troublesome than the killer of the Netherworld faction. Therefore, Suyu dared not let him intervene. Tomorrow we will go according to plan, Suyu said. The Jing deity nodded vigilantly and teleported away. It was reasonable for the sword god to order Suyu to swallow the elixir on the spot. Not only was the effect of the elixir perfect, but it was also extremely easy to digest. When the Jing deity left, Suyu had digested the elixir. Suyu clearly felt that his soul power had skyrocketed. From the current stage 4 all creations realm, he had reached the realm of the mortal fairy in one go. The soul power of the mortal fairy was extremely powerful, and there was a world of difference between it and the all creations. At this moment, Suyu didn't have to deliberately perceive it, but he could clearly perceive a hidden and carefully restrained killing intent in the crowd. The killer of the Netherworld faction. Only one person? Su Yu's eyes flashed. Moreover, Su Yu's thoughts were more fluent, and even his thinking was more agile. Not only his perception, thinking, and other aspects related to the soul had undergone unprecedented qualitative changes. What surprised him even more was that with the qualitative change of the soul, the barrier of the illusionary soul realm, which was only one layer, was finally broken, and he had naturally comprehended it to the top level. The role of the lower level of the illusionary soul realm was to confuse the enemy, the top level was to imitate all the magical powers of the enemy, and the top level was to control the enemy. Su Yu was surprised. Why was the power of the upper level so extraordinary, but the top level seemed ordinary? He had achieved controlling the enemy through the imperial soul realm of the heavens sun gazing at air a long time ago. Why did the top level of the illusionary soul realm go back? It was only when a piece of information appeared in Su Yu's mind that he revealed a surprised expression. So that's how it is. This great circle is even more tyrannical than imitating other people's divine abilities and precious techniques. Su Yu's face was filled with joy, and he had another idea. At that moment, Su Yu finally felt that obscure murderous intent, which had suddenly appeared. The killers of the Netherworld School had made their move. Just as the gods were about to leave, he suddenly made his move. It was a burly man, his muscles full and powerful, and there was a faint divine power filling his body. He was a prospective deity master. In a split second, he appeared in front of Su Yu, caught him off guard, and thrust a dagger that was covered in deadly poison toward Su Yu. Regardless of whether it could penetrate into Su Yu's body, as long as Su Yu's skin was slightly cut, the poison would be enough to kill him on the spot. However, Su Yu was prepared. He took out a golden arrow and stabbed it at the quasi-god without hesitation. The two shot almost at the same time, but in terms of length, the celestial destroying arrow was longer than the dagger. At the same distance, the dagger had not yet pierced Su Yu's body, and the killer would be pierced by the celestial destroying arrow. The killer's heart sank slightly. Su Yu's reaction speed was beyond expectations, which was enough to prove that their previous judgment was correct. This assassination was a trap waiting for them. Break. The killer failed to hit, and he detonated the dagger very decisively. However, there was a loud explosion. The dagger of a low-grade fairy artifact was sacrificed just like that. The dagger exploded, and a large amount of poison broke out. Along with the dagger fragments, they attacked Su Yu. The celestial destroying arrow in Su Yu's palm had to change its attack to block. It moved in front of him and blocked all the dagger fragments. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the killer whispered and condensed a divine power from his abdomen. As soon as the divine power came out, it turned into a golden light and shot directly between Su Yu's eyebrows. At this moment, Su Yu was blocking the fragments and could not react. Even in a dangerous situation, the killer's ability to adapt to the situation was almost instinctive, and he seized Su Yu's flaws. Su Yu's heart suddenly jumped, and he knew it was not good. At this critical moment, Su Yu shouted in a low voice, "Shenga!" Swoosh! Su Yu's arm flashed with green light, and Shenga flashed out. There was a butterfly quietly sitting on Shenga's head. "Little butterfly, he wants to steal your food to eat." Hearing this, the quiet chaos multicolored butterfly suddenly became angry. Shenga had always taught it that there was only one hatred in the world, and that was the hatred of stealing food. The hatred of stealing food. The chaos multicolored butterfly kept this in mind. Seeing that the person in front of it wanted to steal its food, it immediately flapped its wings angrily. He flapped his wings slightly, and the deadly divine power that was attacking Su Yu collapsed under the flapping of his wings. At the same time, the killer's face changed, and he hurriedly retreated. He saw that his burly body had cracks as thick as an arm, from head to toe, and even his soul was severely injured. The killer was shocked. Who was this inconspicuous butterfly? With just a flap of its wings, it made him almost die. If it weren't for the few divine powers in his body to protect himself, his soul would have been destroyed just now, and it would have been impossible for his soul to escape. However, the killer did not give up. He took out something backhand and stuffed it into his mouth. The injuries on the surface of his body and the injuries on his soul were immediately healed. As a killer, there was no shortage of top-grade healing elixirs. However, the killer had just recovered from his injuries, and suddenly there was a warning in his heart, as if something extremely dangerous was coming. He saw Suyu stretch out his palm and point at him from a distance. A Milky Way light flickered faintly, and then a long halberd, which was as black as ink and full of shocking evil spirits, pierced through the void. The killer was shocked. The long halberd contained some kind of extremely evil spirits. Even he was scared out of his wits. Moreover, these evil spirits were all the power of the gods. If this long halberd really hit him, he would die. At the critical moment, the killer bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a faint golden blood. It was the blood of the quasi-god. The blood turned into a shield behind him, trying in vain to resist the long halberd for a moment, giving him time to react calmly. However, this was, after all, a complete god like the tree goddess, who had been pinned down for thousands of years. How could the blood of a quasi-god resist it? Poof! The shield formed by the quasi-god's blood did not even resist for a moment and was penetrated by the long halberd. The killer was shocked. He gritted his teeth again and took out 3 straw men. The straw men looked very similar to the killer. The 3 straw men were thrown out in 3 directions. The movement of the long halberd penetrating the killer slowed down, and he actually lost his target. Because in the perception of the long halberd, the direction of the 3 straw men was the same as the killer. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the killer did not retreat and counterattack. He teleported away from the long halberd and roared towards Suyu. Suyu's pupils shrank slightly. If it was an ordinary person who found out that the enemy had such an absolutely crushing weapon in his hands, he would have already chosen to escape. However, this killer was quick-witted and knew that this was the best opportunity. Die! The killer's voice was still in the air, and there was another poisoned dagger in his palm, which was stabbed fiercely towards Suyu. Suyu did not think about it and raised the celestial destroying arrow to stab it. However, the killer shouted fiercely, "Seize the weapon!" A strange scene happened. The celestial destroying arrow in Suyu's hand suddenly disappeared and appeared in the hands of the killer. This was the divine path of the killer, seize the weapon. At the moment of life and death, if his weapon was seized, wouldn't it be a dead end? Just as the dagger was less than 3 inches away from Suyu, suddenly, from Suyu's arm, a white finger stretched out. That finger lightly tapped on the dagger. The killer was horrified. Regardless of the poison on the dagger, his own stab had the power of a quasi-god. However, his arm at this moment could not stab, as if there was a power above him in that finger. Really, this is a treasure. What if I hurt the children if I throw it away? Even if I can't hurt the children, it will be distressing if the flowers and plants are hurt. Well, I will take it for you. The finger flicked on the dagger, and the killer's body was bounced off uncontrollably. The dagger was glued to the finger. Then, an arm appeared in the green light, and then a beautiful girl in an emerald green dress walked out of it, exuding the breath of nature and life. She quickly put the dagger in her sleeve. That speed was unparalleled. When the killer saw this person, he was shocked and lost his voice. God! Yes, it was a god, and the power of the gods that naturally exuded was not fake. Although the killer quickly saw that this god seemed to be seriously injured and was not as strong as he imagined, it was no problem for her to be stronger than him. What a trap! Even the gods were prepared. The killer's eyes turned, and he immediately turned to escape. The tree goddess chased after him with a smile. Don't go, I tell you, there are many bad people in the world. It is actually very dangerous for you to walk around with so many treasures. As for me, I am a goddess with a bottom line, a sense of honor, and a caring heart. You give all the treasures to me for safekeeping, and I will pay you interest on time every year. You are the biggest bad person in the world. The killer, who was fleeing, stumbled and almost fell. Oh, it doesn't matter if you fall, but the treasures must be fine. A god and a prospective god, one chasing and the other fleeing, in an instant, they had escaped an unknown distance. Looking at the mess on the ground, Suyu sighed. A quasi-god is really difficult to deal with. Suyu could crush Burui, who was a peak mortal fairy, but a quasi-god in the early stage put Suyu in danger. This was the case when Suyu was prepared. If he was not prepared, he would have been poisoned by the dagger as early as the first move. In the end, it was the tree goddess who took action. However, just when everyone was relieved, Suyu sneered. I have been waiting for you for a long time. 9 Suns Sword Formation. Whoosh. Chapter 1160. At the same time, Suyu's figure flashed out of the sword formation. A barely discernible black shadow followed Suyu and was about to leave the sword formation. However, as soon as the black shadow moved, the sword formation was suddenly activated. A sharp silver sword cut through the black shadow and forced it back. Suyu left the sword formation and looked into it, but he couldn't see the killer. To be precise, Suyu could clearly feel that there was a black shadow in the sword formation, but when Suyu glanced at her, his eyes were always forcibly averted. Is this her divine path? Suyu thought to himself. In the sword formation, the black shadow flickered constantly, trying to leave the sword formation, but found that it was a very superior sword formation, and it couldn't find a flaw to leave the sword formation. You knew there was a second killer? The black shadow was a woman, but her voice had lost its gentleness, and there was a hint of murderous intent. Suyu said lightly, Of course I knew, this kind of thing is easy to guess. The Netherworld faction claims to never fail a mission, but how can there be 10,000 things in this world? There will always be a what-if situation, and you can maintain a record of never failing until today. In addition to the quality of the killers, there must be a more important factor, and that is a backup plan. If a killer makes a mistake, there must be another, or even 2, 3, or even countless killers to make up for the what-if situation. So, I guess there are at least 2 killers coming to deal with me this time. If you take me seriously, you should have sent a third one, Suyu said as he glanced around. The charming woman was secretly startled. She believed the rumors about this boy's intelligence to be 100% true. This man's calculations were flawless, and his ability to set up and design was unpredictable. If she were to re-evaluate, she would raise the difficulty of this mission by 2 levels, to level 6. This was the difficulty of assassinating a middle-stage prospective deity. In that case, you've secretly set up this sword formation while you were fighting the other assassin? The charming woman asked. Suyu nodded lightly. If not, how could he have been in danger several times? That was because Suyu had been distracted with setting up the 9 Suns sword formation and had no time to deal with the first killer, so his reaction was not sharp enough. You are so calculative. The charming woman sucked in a breath of cold air. It was no wonder that she had been fooled so easily. He was really too cunning. Without batting an eyelid, he set up the 9 Suns sword formation and even pretended to be relaxed to lure her into making a move. You flatter me, Suyu said calmly. Then, his expression turned cold. Behead him. This sound came without any warning. The gentlewoman was startled once more. She shouted in a deep voice, You can tell that I'm stalling for time? What a joke. It's just a trick to stall for time. What else can't I see? As Suyu's voice faded, the 9 heavenly orchid silver bamboo swords were suddenly activated. In an instant, 9 silver lights flickered and weaved into a space that sealed off 9 angles, surrounding the charming woman and isolating her from the outside world. The charming woman gritted her teeth and took out a bronze-colored comb. The comb was a middle-grade immortal artifact. As she combed through the air, the 9 suns sword formation began to sway. A few of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo swords that were closer to it also began to tremble, as though they were about to be expelled from the sword formation. Fortunately, the sword formation was activated. In an instant, the 9 silver lights penetrated back and forth in the enclosed space hundreds of times. The black-clothed woman did not even say a word. She stood there motionlessly. With a cracking sound, the comb in her hand was broken into countless pieces, and she was also cut into pieces hundreds of times. When the 9 suns sword formation stopped operating, only the powdered comb and a pair of minced flesh were left on the ground. The crane deity's family was stunned. What kind of sword formation was this? It could strangle a prospective deity so easily. Suyu glanced at it and said lightly, "I've underestimated a prospective deity after all. Can't you be killed like this?" The minced flesh on the ground turned into black flames with a puff. From the flames, a pitch-black phoenix was born. Its feathers were deep black, emitting wisps of black air. A pair of cold phoenix eyes stared at Suyu coldly. "Phoenix rebirth. Turns out that your original form is a black phoenix." Looking at the wisps of black air emitted from her body, Suyu said in awe. "Rebirth. Once she died, she could be reborn immediately. Invisibility was her divine path, and rebirth was her talent." As expected, a prospective deity was not so easy to kill. "Human brat, you killed me once. Can you kill me again?" The black phoenix flapped its wings, and its graceful phoenix body slowly floated into the sky. The black air around it became darker and darker. Suyu was no stranger to that air. It was the energy of death, which was enough to kill Suyu. Her words were still floating in the air, but her body had already flown over Suyu's head. Her sharp phoenix claws were wrapped in a dense energy of death, and she made a fatal claw at Suyu. Without hesitation, Suyu grabbed the long halberd of evil fatal energy with one hand and collided with the claws. Suddenly, a terrible force came along the long halberd, trying to destroy Suyu's body. At the critical moment, 10 rays of light shot out from Suyu's body at the same time. His body turned into a golden dragon, and he attacked with all his might. However, a miserable groan was heard. Not only did the black phoenix fail to kill Suyu, but Suyu's long halberd penetrated the phoenix's claws, and pitch-black blood flowed out. The black phoenix lifted its claws and escaped from the long halberd. The black phoenix swooped down, spitting out black air from its mouth like flames, and rolled towards Suyu. Burning death! Poof! The black flames contained fatal danger, and they engulfed Suyu. With a dull sound, Suyu's golden dragon body was burned into ashes by the flames. Feather God! The face of the crane deity's family changed dramatically. Suyu was dead. A hint of relief appeared in the black phoenix's eyes. Looking down at the black air flowing ceaselessly from the phoenix's claws, and sensing the remaining evil fatal energy in her body, she couldn't help but smile bitterly in her heart. Sacrificing a killer to distract the strongest tree goddess, she still performed a rebirth from the ashes, and with severe injuries, she barely managed to kill this person. The difficulty of this mission was definitely comparable to a level 6 mission. However, the mission was finally completed, and it was time to retreat. However, right at this moment, the black phoenix looked at the pile of ashes on the ground abruptly, and gradually, her eyes were filled with horror. All of a sudden, a mass of pitch-black flames emerged from the ashes on the ground. Then, from the pitch-black flames, a giant black dragon flew out. Rebirth from the ashes? The black phoenix couldn't believe her eyes. Wasn't this her innate magical power? Moreover, it was a unique talent of phoenix's. Why did it appear in this dragon? Surprise, shock, and confusion flickered in her eyes at the same time. Then, a deep murderous intention flashed in her eyes. This human was so weird that the black phoenix felt extremely uneasy. Swish! With a sharp air-piercing sound, the black phoenix swooped down again. She wanted to kill Suyu when he was still unstable after his rebirth from the ashes. However, right at this moment, Suyu shouted softly, "Giant divine soldier!" Boom! Boom! All of a sudden, the whole ground started to shake violently. In the backyard of the crane deity's family, a secret chamber was smashed by a fist that was as large as 1,000 feet. It was a fist that stretched out from the ground. Then, as if the sky and earth were being split apart, a huge crack that was thousands of feet thick appeared in the mansion of the crane deity's family. From the depths of the ground, a giant whose whole body was golden climbed out. On the head of the giant stood Wang Yunxian, who was laughing heartily. "Little Su, I'm here to help you." However, after standing up, the giant didn't move at all and didn't obey his orders. Wang Yunxian's face stiffened. "What's going on? Wasn't it very obedient during the test? Is it broken again?" The Black Phoenix looked at the giant metal giant that was as tall as 10,000 feet in shock. She could feel that the giant was giving off a very powerful aura. At least, it was far beyond what she could handle. Apart from the trepidation, the Black Phoenix's only consolation was that the giant divine soldier seemed to have some problems after it was refined. It didn't obey orders. Seizing the opportunity, the Black Phoenix's eyes flashed with cold, murderous intent. She clawed at Suyu fiercely, trying to kill him again. However, right at this moment, a giant fist that was as large as 1,000 feet fell from the sky all of a sudden. The Black Phoenix was taken aback. Looking up, all she could see was darkness. The fist had covered the whole sky. How could she dare to continue clawing at Suyu? Spreading her black wings, she flew away rapidly. However, just as she dodged the fist, the top of her head turned black again. Another fist was coming at her, which was well prepared. The Black Phoenix had nowhere to hide and was hit by the giant divine soldier's fist. Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. The Black Phoenix's body was smashed into pieces. It turned out that at this critical moment, the giant divine soldier suddenly obeyed orders again. Black flames rose from the meat paste that the Black Phoenix had turned into again. Apparently, it was going to be reborn again. Suyu's eyes flashed coldly. "Do you think I'll let you resurrect?" Titter. The long halberd of evil fatal energy pierced through the sky and nailed the meat paste into the meat paste. The powerful evil fatal energy extinguished the flames. No matter how hard the meat paste wriggled and tried to be reborn, it couldn't move the long halberd at all. If it could be moved so easily, the tree goddess had been nailed to the throne for so many years. That would be such a waste. Poof! All of a sudden, a small cluster of black flames emerged and transformed into a black phoenix the size of a thumb. It stared at Suyu coldly. "You can't kill me. No matter how many times you kill me, I can always be resurrected." Chapter 1161. Ah! Suddenly, a cry of surprise came. It was the tree goddess who had returned. She stood behind Suyu and looked at him in surprise. "My dear Feather, you are so talented. Even I can't think of such a quick and easy way to make money," the tree goddess exclaimed. Suyu said with a gloomy face, "Why am I not happy to be praised by you? My dear Feather, you are too great. You are the god of light. You have pointed out the direction of light for me, who was lost. You have lit up a light of hope for my dark life. I have decided that from today onwards, I will train this black phoenix and open up our fantasy circus." The tree goddess rubbed her hands, saliva dripping from the corners of her mouth, as if she had already seen the scene of her hands going numb from collecting tickets. The Black Phoenix sneered. "Don't act. Do you think you can scare the killer of the Netherworld faction with a little intimidation? You have underestimated the Netherworld faction." Suyu touched his nose. "I did mean to scare you, but that rogue god might not." The tree goddess was so poor that she could do anything devoid of conscience. "I do want to pry some information about the Netherworld faction from you," Suyu said calmly. "After all, those who dare to kill me have no reason to live in this world." Hearing that, the Black Phoenix was stunned. This guy was so arrogant. Did he want to wipe out the Netherworld faction? Even though she knew this person was good at scheming, the Black Phoenix just smiled contemptuously. Because the Great Eastern Alliance was not sure that they could wipe out the Netherworld faction. When the Netherworld faction was at its peak, it assassinated 3 deities in a row. As a result, the Great Eastern Alliance sent 20 deities deep into the land of divine remains, ready to give the Netherworld School a thunderous blow. But in the end, the Netherworld School was safe and sound, while the 20 deities returned in frustration. Among them, 2 deities were left behind forever. It was not only because the world of divine remains was close to the demon territory and had a special geographical location. It was also because the world of divine remains shared a common enemy and regarded the Great Eastern Alliance as a potential enemy. Entering the world of divine remains was like falling into a vast ocean. There were enemies everywhere. They couldn't even find the specific location of the Netherworld faction, so how could they destroy it? Haha, before you came, you didn't expect to fall into the hands of an All Creations Junior, did you? Suyu smiled faintly. There might be impossible things in this world, but that was before you met me. I will pay a visit to the Netherworld School sooner or later. Hearing Suyu's confident words, the Black Phoenix did not know why, but she was a little worried. This young human was completely different from any of the enemies she had encountered before. No matter what you do to me, whether you torture me, tempt me, or force me to confess, don't even think about getting information about the Netherworld faction out of me. As an assassin of the Netherworld faction, I've long been prepared to die. The Black Phoenix looked as if she had been freed, and she wasn't afraid of Suyu's threat in the slightest. Suyu's lips curled into a smile. Did no one tell you that the path of souls exists in this world? If you want to know the secrets of a person's soul, you don't have to ask them yourself. Soul search or mind control. All of us assassins have received the protection of the Death God. Our souls can't be searched or controlled by outsiders. Looking at the Black Phoenix's fearless expression, Suyu said indifferently, "What a foolish woman. You have forgotten my words so quickly. There might be impossible things in this world, but that was before you met me." You. The Black Phoenix looked at Suyu in shock. Before she could finish speaking, 2 beams of green light shot out of Suyu's eyes abruptly. The Black Phoenix was caught off guard and was instantly hit by the green light. The 2 beams of green light were very domineering. They turned into 2 sharp arrows that pierced through her soul and nailed it in place, rendering it motionless. The Black Phoenix's eyes struggled for a moment. Then, her expression gradually softened and calmed down. At last, the virtual figure bowed in the air and said gently, "I am Lilua of the Black Phoenix clan. Greetings, Master. I have offended you before. Please punish me, Master." The tree goddess blinked her eyes and said, "What an overbearing soul-controlling technique. The method of control is not coercion, but forcibly controlling her thoughts and making her acknowledge you as her master. Even the gods who cultivate the path of the soul can rarely achieve such a technique." This was the effect of the great completion of the illusionary soul realm. It was peerlessly domineering, and could make the one being controlled willingly submit to it. In this way, not only was the mind of the one being controlled preserved, but all of her strength was also preserved. To put it simply, it could turn any enemy into a loyal servant in the blink of an eye. Its domineering nature was remarkable. Of course, the precondition was that the target had to be weak or defenseless. "Tell me the details of the Netherworld faction." After a while, Suyu's eyes flickered. The structure of the Netherworld faction was extremely complicated. Early-stage perspective deities like Lilua could only be regarded as mid-level figures in the Netherworld faction. Above them were the top-notch killers of middle-stage perspective deities and late-stage perspective deities. Further up was the most mysterious master of the Netherworld faction, the Death Deity. Having learned a lot about the Netherworld faction, Suyu nodded slowly and put away the long halberd. Lilua was reborn from the flames and turned into a beautiful middle-aged woman. She knelt on the ground and listened to Su Yu's orders at all times. Her expression was very natural, without any sense of being forced. What about the other killer? Su Yu looked at the tree goddess. The tree goddess clutched her pocket tightly and pouted. I urgently need to replenish my godly spirit. The godly spirit of this prospective deity is not stable enough. I can just dig it out and use it as my supplement. Su Yu said placidly, how much can a mere prospective deity replenish for you? If you are obedient during tomorrow's carnival of all gods, I can help you greatly replenish your godly spirit. Haha, I know you love me. My good husband, when are we getting married? And then get a divorce and divide my assets, right? Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. How can you be so righteous? The tree goddess handed the first killer she caught to Su Yu. He was in good condition, which showed how easy it was for the tree goddess to catch him. As soon as he came out, his first reaction was not to escape but to assassinate Su Yu, who was right in front of him. With the tree goddess around, he could not escape, so he could only capture Su Yu. Humph! Lilua, who was half kneeling on the ground, snorted coldly and struck out with her palm. Both of them were early-stage prospective deities, but Lilua's combat power was obviously a notch higher than his, and she managed to repel him. The killer was shocked. Lilua, have you pledged allegiance to her? From Lilua's eyes, the killer could not see any signs of her soul being manipulated. You want to kill my master? I'll kill you first. Lilua's eyes were filled with malice. She was about to finish him off when Su Yu stopped her. The tree goddess understood. With a shift of her mind, a large number of vines grew from the ground and entangled the killer abruptly, wrapping him up like a huge dumpling, only revealing a pair of eyes and mouth. I can also pledge allegiance to you, the killer said. Su Yu said placidly, do you believe what you just said? The killer said, if Lilua can pledge allegiance to you, so can I, Jean Gang. One killer from the Netherworld faction is enough for me. What's the use of one more? Su Yu said placidly, in terms of capability, position in the Netherworld faction, and information about the Netherworld faction, you're far from Lilua's. It's meaningless to take you in. Jean Gang naturally did not pledge allegiance willingly, but seized the opportunity to escape and kill Su Yu. However, although I don't intend to take you in, you're still of great value to me. Su Yu smiled faintly and cast a glance at the tree goddess. The tree goddess smiled. With a shift of her mind, Jingong's soul was suppressed until it was in a weakened state, unable to resist. Next, Su Yu successfully controlled it as well. The two prospective deities half-knelt before Su Yu. Only then did he Rushu approach with a face full of shame. Feather God, we're really useless. Su Yu had encountered an assassination attempt at the doorstep of the Crane deity's family. The Crane deity's family was full of people, but they had no powerful fighters to use. It was truly a tragedy. Your capability is limited. If you rush up rashly, apart from becoming hostages for the killers and hindering me from killing them, you won't be of much use. You've done well to stop your people, Su Yu said approvingly. If Hirushu hadn't stopped his people, the scene would have been chaotic, and chaos was advantageous to the killers. Feather God, these two killers, how are you going to deal with them? Hirushu's eyelids twitched as he looked at the two prospective deities of the Netherworld faction. Rumor had it that the prospective deity killers of the Netherworld faction were extraordinarily powerful. Any one of them could kill an ordinary prospective deity of the Great Eastern Alliance on their own. Unexpectedly, two of them were killed by the Feather God in a row. More importantly, they obeyed Su Yu's orders now, which indirectly increased the strength of the Crane deity's family. Su Yu pointed at Lilua. Take her back to the family to rest and recuperate. For the next period of time, she will temporarily guard the Crane deity's family on my behalf. The Carnival of All Gods was about to begin. As a substitute deity, Su Yu was likely to be away for a long time. As for Jin Gang, Su Yu's lips curled into a cold smile. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Great young Master Qin misses me so much. If I don't pay him a visit, it'll be disrespectful. 2 traps, each more dangerous than the last. If he didn't return the favor, upon hearing Su Yu's words, a voice filled with hatred sounded. Lord Feather God, if you want to go to the Crane deity's family, I'm willing to lead the way. Turning his head, he saw it was Boutier, the former captain of the law enforcement team in the Crane deity's cavern world. That day, he was used by Qin Feichen and thrown into the Crane deity's cavern world in an attempt to kill Su Yu. Whether Su Yu would die or not, Boutier would definitely be killed. Qin Feichen was obviously sending him to his death. Su Yu said with a smile, after all, he was your former master. Can you be so cruel? Boutier revealed a look of hatred. It's not that I'm heartless, but the Book deity's family is unjust. I'm willing to serve you, Lord Feather God. Su Yu cast a meaningful look at Boutier and said with a faint smile, all right, after this, you'll stay in the Crane deity's cavern world and stay by my side. In response, Wang Yunxian only chuckled. A fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in, I have no objection. How could Boutier's little scheme be hidden from the 2 of them? Boutier took the initiative to lead the way and offer his services, hoping to gain Su Yu's protection. Chapter 1162. Thank you, Feather God. Thank you, Master Wang. Boutier was overjoyed. His eyes were cold. Book deity's family, don't blame me this time. Feather God, I have something to report to you, Boutier said. After Su Yu nodded, Boutier said, Feather God, have you ever wondered why Qin Feichen could see through your weakness? I heard that the Book deity's family has a treasure called the Book deity's treasury. It gathers all the knowledge in the world and can see through all secret. Did Qin Feichen use it? Boutier said, yes. The Book deity's treasury is formed by the accumulated knowledge of the past Book deities. It is mysterious and extraordinary. Once it is used, no secret in the world can be hidden from the Book deity's treasury. Feather God, you'd better destroy the Book deity's treasury. Otherwise, it will be a great threat to the Feather God. Su Yu was good at scheming. If Qin Feichen used the Book deity's treasury and saw through Su Yu's plan, he would be able to give Su Yu a fatal blow at some point. If Rushu hadn't tipped him off, he would have been killed. The Book deity's treasury? Su Yu also felt the threat of this thing. It would be a great threat if it was not eliminated. Tomorrow was the Carnival of All Gods. His and the Jing deity's plot was a shocking event that could not be exposed. Once the 100 deities knew about it, they would attack together and kill the 2 of them. If Qin Feichen heard some news and used the Book deity's treasury to investigate, then Su Yu broke out in a cold sweat. How could there be such a thing in the world that shouldn't exist? Boutier looked around and said in a low voice, in fact, the deities are also very dissatisfied with the Book deity's family building the Book deity's treasury because their secrets are always in the Book deity's family's hands. However, they can't destroy the treasure without a good reason. If the Feather God is willing to destroy it, the deities won't stop you when you attack. They might even help you secretly. Is that so? Su Yu's eyes were cold. He had too many secrets that he didn't want others to know. He had to destroy the Book deity's treasury. Little Su, are we going to do something big again? Wang Yunxian hadn't recovered from the excitement of destroying the 2 prospective deities of the Netherworld faction. Suddenly, he learned that Su Yu was going to do another earth-shattering thing. Wang Yunxian was instantly energized. Bring the giant god warrior and follow me. Let's go and give Qin Feichen a big gift, Su Yu said with a cold smile. Swish, swish, suddenly, a large number of sharp auras came from afar. They were the descendants of the deities who had left and returned. When they sensed the shocking phenomenon, they all turned back to take a look. Su Yu's eyes flickered, and he secretly ordered Jin Gang to pretend that it couldn't defeat the enemy and flee for its life. As an assassin, King Kong's camouflage skills were superb. He flew backward and spat out a mouthful of blood. He crashed heavily on the ground, as if he had suffered a powerful blow. Jin Gang stood up quickly and shouted, "Su Yu! Don't even think about stopping me from killing the descendants of the gods today." As it spoke, King Kong transformed into a stream of light and fled. Su Yu and Wang Yunxuan's faces tightened. Then, they shouted, "With us here today, the assassins of the Netherworld faction will not be able to leave this place alive." Swish, swish. The two of them jumped onto the giant god warrior and controlled it to run wildly on the ground. Although the giant god warrior was huge, it was very agile and fast. Its speed was no less than that of an early-stage prospective deity. This giant soldier god, which was thousands of feet tall, was a mysterious weapon that Wang Yunxian had refined based on the blueprint found in the god's relic. The blueprint called this weapon a giant soldier god. The lowest level of this weapon had the terrifying strength of a prospective deity. If there were enough materials, it would not be a problem to refine it into a late-stage prospective deity. Unfortunately, all of these materials were rare and precious objects in the starry sky that were as old as 10,000 years. They were completely extinct on the continent. The only way to find them was in the Xing River. Hearing that, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He paid attention to the names of those materials. Not long after they left, they ran into the descendants of the deities who had returned. "Feather deity, what happened?" Xing Yuanxin, who was the leader of the descendants of the deities, said with a serious face, "I sensed the aura of a prospective deity." Su Yu said seriously, "Yes. I found 2 prospective deities from the Netherworld faction were tailing you. So, we had a fierce battle. One of them was subdued by me. The other one escaped." "Tailing us?" The descendants of the deities turned pale immediately. For them, the Netherworld school was a dreadful existence that would make them turn pale at the mere mention of it. Moreover, it was at the level of prospective deities. Except for Xing Yuanxin, who had the strength to contend with them, the rest of the people present would only face the fate of being slaughtered. After learning that one of them escaped, they even forgot how Su Yu could subdue one of them. Xing Yuanxin looked at Su Yu suspiciously. However, as the Sunluo law enforcer, she couldn't ignore the killers of the Netherworld faction intruding the Great Eastern Alliance. She said, "I will go with you to kill these killers." Yang Tai touched his chin. He was the only one who knew those 2 killers didn't come for the descendants of the deities, but for Su Yu. Now, Su Yu lied to them. Yang Tai couldn't help but laugh. "What is this guy thinking? Heh, it seems interesting. I will go and have a look. The rest of you, go to the nearby cavern world immediately and ask for the protection of the local deities. We will go and kill the killers of the Netherworld faction." Xing Yuanxin dispersed the crowd and went after the killers with Su Yu, Wang Yunxian, and Yang Tai. The news spread in the streets at an amazing speed. "Big news! Have you heard? The prospective deity killers of the Netherworld faction came to the Great Eastern Alliance to slaughter the descendants of the deities. However, one of them was subdued by the Feather God and the other was seriously injured." "What? The prospective deity killers of the Netherworld faction? What? The Feather God is so powerful? Even the prospective deity killers of the Netherworld faction were subdued by him? No way. Is the Feather God so powerful? Why is it impossible? I heard that the Feather God turned into a golden dragon in public and defeated Bu Rui easily. He is a real deity reincarnated by 9 dragons. By the way, what kind of deity is the 9 dragons deity? Why haven't I heard of it? Who cares? It must be an extremely powerful deity. The Great Eastern Alliance has a history of millions of years. Many deities have been born. What's so strange about it? Stop talking nonsense. Where is the killer of the Netherworld faction that the Feather God is chasing? I heard that he fled to the cavern world of the tree deity. Crack. In the secret chamber of the book deity's family in the cavern world of the book deity. Qin Feichen's face was gloomy. He smashed the table in front of him with a palm. Useless. He is just an all creations. Not only can two great prospective deities do nothing to him, but one of them was subdued and the other was chased. Beside him, Wucho didn't even dare to breathe loudly. The Netherworld faction, which claimed to have never failed a mission, failed the mission. However, the failure was not the key. It was an incredible failure. Why were the killers of the Netherworld faction inferior to ordinary killer organizations? After being defeated, they turned to the target they were supposed to kill. After a long time, Wucho said, "Young master, now is not the time to care about success or failure. We should be more concerned about the whereabouts of Jin Gang." "What? Where is he being chased to? Does he need my attention?" Qin Feichen heard the hidden meaning in his words. Wucho said solemnly, "Master, Jin Gang came to the cavern world of the book deity and came all the way to the family of the book deity." Upon hearing that, Qin Feichen's eyes flickered. As a killer, he wouldn't be stupid enough to ask me for help and expose his employer, would he? Besides, the Netherworld faction will never disclose the employer's information to killers who are on a mission. Thinking of this, Qin Feichen's face did not relax. Instead, he fell into deep thought. If that is the case, why did he come to the family of the book deity? Wucho said, "Young master, this matter most likely has something to do with Su Yu. I don't know what's going on with that Jin Gang. He is running and yelling at the same time. His purpose in coming to the Great Eastern Alliance is to kill all the descendants of the deities. There is something strange about this." Qin Feichen became serious. After a while, he said, "Let's wait and see. The book deity's treasury has been used last time. It will take some time for it to be reopened again. Otherwise, we should be able to find out Su Yu's purpose very clearly." Wucho nodded slowly. "Yes, I think after this matter, we should use the book deity's treasury to investigate Su Yu himself. I always feel that he is too mysterious. Maybe he has some amazing secret." Upon hearing this, Qin Feichen frowned slightly. The price of using the book deity's treasury once is not high. Using it just for him. Alright, anyway, this time we are going to calculate the many variables in the carnival of all gods and the secrets of the various deities. It is good to speculate on him while we are at it. Right at that moment, a panicked report came from outside the door. "Young master, things are bad. The Netherworld faction's killer Jin Gang has run into the family of the book deity and is on a killing spree. The 4th young master, the 7th young master, and the 9th young master are all dead." "What?" Qin Feichen slammed the table and stood up. The Netherworld faction's killer had really come to the family of the book deity. "Send my order. Immediately ask the prospective deity seniors of the family to come and protect me. In addition, send a message to the Glaze Fairy deity and ask her to help." Qin Feichen yelled continuously. Swoosh. Soon, an old prospective deity appeared in front of Qin Feichen. He was also a member of the Qin family and was an artificial prospective deity. Many years ago, he obtained the godly spirit of a prospective deity and successfully became a prospective deity. However, because it was not his own godly spirit, he could not take a step forward and remained in the early stage of the prospective deity. "From now on, do not leave my side, under any circumstances." Qin Feichen cherished his life very much. As for the other descendants of the book deity, they were naturally not as important as him. "Yes, young master. Let's go and have a look." When they came to the front yard, they found a burly man who was hunting down the people of the Qin family. 7 or 8 descendants of the book deity had been killed, and only a few descendants were left. Jin Gang killed everyone in sight, but when he caught a glimpse of Qin Feichen and the early-stage prospective deity behind him, he ignored them and continued to hunt down the rest of the family. Looking at the corpses all over the ground and the unscrupulous Jin Gang, Qin Feichen's heart was bleeding. Chapter 1163. Qin Feichen narrowed his eyes and glanced around. Don't leave me. This might be Su Yu's plot to lure you away from me so that he can assassinate me. You can't leave me before the glaze fairy deity arrives. The old man was anxious, but he understood that Qin Feichen was the heir of the book deity. Anyone else could die except for Qin Feichen. Helpless, the old man could only watch the scene unfold helplessly, until the earth shook violently and a giant 10,000 feet tall descended upon the book deity's family. Su Yu yelled righteously, "Shameless killer of the Netherworld faction, how dare you assassinate so many experts of the Great Eastern Alliance? Surrender now." Xing Yuanxin muttered to herself, "Isn't he being too excited?" Seeing Jingang had finally started his killing spree, Xing Yuanxin couldn't sit still anymore. She flew down with the golden whip in her hand and caught up with Jingang to fight. However, Jingang ran into her, but didn't fight. On the top of the giant divine soldier, Boutier secretly told Su Yu where the important place of the book deity's family was, especially the place where the book deity's treasury was hidden. Su Yu's eyes shone with shrewdness as he secretly passed on the order to Jingang. The next moment, Jingang, who was slaughtering in the backyard, suddenly fled toward a heavily guarded palace. Seeing that, Qin Feichen's face tightened. "That's the book deity's treasury. Miss Yuanxin, please stop him." Xing Yuanxin was about to nod when Su Yu's yell came from above. "Xing Yuanxin, get out of the way! Let the giant divine soldier come." As soon as he finished speaking, the giant divine soldier's foot stomped down. Xing Yuanxin glared at Su Yu. Was he going to stomp her to death too? She dodged hurriedly, and the giant divine soldier's foot stomped down. Jingang didn't step on him, but the independent space where the book deity's family stored the infinite resources was crushed by the prospective deity's foot. Poof! All of a sudden, the sky full of resources was squeezed out from the crushed space, spraying in all directions like a waterfall. Instantly, the creatures near the crane deity's family were overjoyed and flew into the sky to pick up the treasures. These were rare treasures in the outside world, and any one of them was worth a lot of divine coins. Damn! How can I miss out on helping others by picking up treasures? The tree goddess flew out indignantly. With a thought in her mind, countless vines shot out from the ground and entangled the falling treasures in the air at lightning speed. To be more precise, all living beings within the range of the vines were also the targets of the vines. The spatial rings, ornaments, and even clothes of good quality were all plundered by the vines. As a treasure hunter, this is the attitude you should have. Pick everything up, leave nothing behind. A certain goddess earnestly instructed the nearby treasure hunters. A group of treasure hunters who had their clothes stripped said, "You're robbing us." The resources that had been squeezed out were only 1% of the resources of the book deity's family. The other 99% had been reduced to ashes along with the annihilation of the space. Qin Feichen was furious. "Su Yu, what did you do?" Even Xing Yuanxin couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Su Yu had made a big mistake by destroying the resources of the book deity's family. It might not contain all the resources of the book deity's family, but it should occupy half of them. After all, it was the accumulation of the book deity's family for thousands of years. Su Yu had a solemn look on his face. "I'm sorry, nephew Feichen, but the annihilation of the Netherworld faction is a serious matter, so I hope you can bear with it." The giant soldier god stepped on King Kong again. King Kong was currently in a huge palace that looked like a book. Seeing that, the old man was so anxious that his soul almost flew out of his body. He hurried to say, "Don't step on it. Inside is the secret cultivation realm of the book deity's family. It has cost the book deities of the past generations." Puff, with another muffled sound, the huge palace suddenly collapsed. The space inside was rapidly compressed, and finally, it exploded with a bang. The mystic realm was finished. Large amounts of resources from the secret realm were blasted out and scattered all over the ground. Then, with a loud laugh, the figure of a certain treasure-hunting goddess appeared and disappeared. The strange thing was that the rest of the treasure hunters had resigned and left the treasure hunting industry, silently looking at the back view of the treasure hunting goddess. "Nephew Fachin, please bear with the greater picture," Su Yu said solemnly. Subsequently, King Kong fled to another hall. "Don't step on it. That is the Divine Path Enlightenment Room left behind by the book deities of the past generations. It contains the lost Divine Path Enlightenment of the past deities. It is an important place for the book deities family." "Puff, Nephew Fachin, please bear with the greater picture. Don't step on it, that is left behind by the book deities of the past generations." "Puff, Nephew Fachin, please bear with the greater picture. Don't step on it, that is." "Puff, Nephew Fachin, please bear with the greater picture. Don't." "Puff, Nephew Fachin, what did you say you didn't want just now?" King Kong fled all the way. Su Yu controlled the giant soldier god to chase after him, destroying countless important places of the book deities family along the way. Anyway, King Kong had been to the few places that Boutier had mentioned that were related to the rise and fall of the book deities family. Finally, only the most important place was left, the book deities' treasury. The book deities' perseverance was feared by all deities, and it was all thanks to the book deities' treasury. Who wouldn't be afraid of someone who knew their secrets? The deities hated the book deities' treasury to the core, but no one dared to take the lead in destroying it. That was because the book deity had an extremely important backer, who ranked in the top 5 among the 100 deities. That person was also a big shot who could make the Great Eastern Alliance tremble with a stomp of his foot. Therefore, no deity dared to destroy the book deity's treasury. That was also why the book deity dared to travel and was so at ease with the book deity's treasury. King Kong fled to the deepest part of the book deity's family, in front of the 10 Green Mountains. Finally, Qin Feichin could no longer sit still. "Don't worry about me, stop King Kong in front of the book deity's treasury." The elder received the order. He, who was already drenched in sweat from anxiety, bellowed and chased after King Kong. He had been stuck at the early stage perspective deity level for many years, and his abilities were above King Kong's. As soon as he attacked, strange phenomena appeared in the heavens and earth. King Kong's face was filled with fear. He had no choice but to stop and face the enemy head-on. However, right at that moment, a giant foot kicked at him abruptly, blowing up the elder's body. All that was left was an old soul that leaped out with a lump of godly spirit. Qin Feichin's murderous intent surged as he bellowed, "Su Yu! What are you doing?" Su Yu shrugged his shoulders helplessly. Your perspective deity couldn't take things easy and knocked his head against the foot of the giant divine soldier, shattering his body. What else could I do? I don't have time to comfort someone who can't take things easy in front of a great enemy. The elder's soul was trembling with rage. You were the one who kicked me. How did I knock into it? Qin Feichin was infuriated by Su Yu's words. However, staring at the giant divine soldier, Qin Feichin was furious, but he dared not stop it. Qin Feichin could sense Su Yu's murderous intent against him very clearly. Once Su Yu found an excuse to attack him, he would destroy him at all costs, just like the elder. Swoosh! King Kong fled into the 10 Green Mountains. Su Yu's lips curled into a cold smile as he maneuvered the giant divine soldier to stomp down abruptly. Bang! The Green Mountains shook, but they were not damaged. From within the 10 Green Mountains, beams of extremely powerful divine energy were emitted. Su Yu's gaze froze. According to Boutier, the book deity's treasury was hidden beneath the 10 Green Mountains. The 10 Green Mountains were defensive barriers left behind by the 10 generations of book deities with the purpose of protecting the book deity's treasury from being destroyed. A mere prospective deity couldn't possibly break through the barriers of the Green Mountains. Seeing that Su Yu couldn't break through the barrier, Qin Feichin heaved a sigh of relief. The book deity's family had established itself in the Great Eastern Alliance by relying on the book deity's treasury that had been accumulated over the generations. If this item was lost, the status of the Book Deity's family would suffer a disastrous decline. However, Su Yu didn't panic. Instead, a meaningful smile appeared at the corners of his lips. He looked up at the sky and said, "We have failed in our pursuit of the Netherworld faction's assassins. If the deities of the heavens are watching, please lend us a hand." As soon as he finished speaking, a beam of divine energy mixed with complex sense descended from the sky and bombarded the first green mountain. All of a sudden, the restrictive green mountain set up by the first generation of Book Deity exploded. A faint smile appeared on Su Yu's face. The deities of the heavens couldn't sit still any longer. They all wanted to seize this opportunity to destroy the Book Deity's treasury. As he thought of this, Su Yu put on a troubled expression. "Deities of the heavens, this assassin is extremely cunning. I'm afraid 1 or 2 attacks won't be able to hit him. Why don't we attack a few more at the same time?" Upon hearing that, Qin Feichen's face changed drastically. He bellowed furiously, "Who dares to destroy the important place of the Book Deity's family?" Bang! 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 Dozens of beams of divine energy streaked across the horizon. Nobody knew where they came from, and nobody knew whose sense they belonged to, bombarded the remaining 9 green mountains like dense thunderbolts. In an instant, the 9 restrictive green mountains turned into ruins. Qin Feichen stared blankly at the shattered green mountains, his heart filled with hatred and anger. Especially when he discovered that all the deities of the heavens seemed to have gone blind. All 10 green mountains had been blasted to smithereens, and only the area of 10 feet in circumference where Jingang stood was intact. He was furious. Great! While the Book Deity was traveling, the deities secretly helped Su Yu to destroy the Book Deity's treasury. However, Qin Feichen was powerless to stop them. He could only look on helplessly. The restrictive green mountains were broken, and the Book Deity's treasury hidden under the green mountains was finally revealed. It was a simple and unadorned bookshelf. On the bookshelf, there were about 1,000 books, both old and new, neatly arranged. However, each book was an independent world, and there were as many as billions of books hidden in it. In particular, there was a book named The Record of the 100 Deities. Recorded in it were the secrets of the deities of the heavens. Peeking into the book, Su Yu could feel the impatience of the deities. All the deities were urging Su Yu to destroy the Book Deity's treasury as soon as possible. With the vastness of the interior space of the book, the information about the deities collected was probably an astronomical figure. If the bookshelf could analyze information on its own, with such a huge amount of information, there was really no secret of the Great Eastern Alliance that the Book Deity's treasury couldn't deduce. "I have to get rid of this thing." Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. He urged the giant divine soldier to punch it. However, right at that moment, a horrifying will descended from the heavens. "Stop it!" The magnificent divine energy contained in the voice radiated across the entire world of the Book Deity. Su Yu's face changed slightly. Was there a deity obstructing him? Upon closer inspection, the many deities who had attacked just now had all left. It was as if the appearance of this person had made them extremely fearful. The Glaze Fairy deity. Qin Feichen's anger was swept away, and his face was filled with ecstasy. Chapter 1164. Lu Li, isn't she the law enforcer who participated in the rescue of the Central Prefecture's king? Su Yu's heart moved slightly. The missions of the 9 states really involved the level of God. He just didn't know the exact relationship between the Glaze Fairy deity and the Central Prefecture's king. However, it was impossible for Su Yu to stop at the last moment. The Book Deity's treasury was too dangerous. Once this matter was over and Qin Feichen found out about Su Yu's secret, it would be a terrible disaster. Not to mention killing the law enforcer, the most terrible thing was that the divine 9-dragon cauldron had been discovered. Once the news spread, the deities of the Great Eastern Alliance would immediately become Su Yu's enemies, including the Jing deity and the deities who had finally won the favor and support of Su Yu. Therefore, the book deity's treasury had to be destroyed. He couldn't do it, but someone else could. Amidst the secret urging, Vajra disappeared leisurely. Before the glaze fairy deity's true body arrived, it flew to the bookshelf, sacrificed all the divine power in its god-source sphere, and bombarded the bookshelf. No matter how strong the bookshelf was, it was still an object. How could it withstand divine power? However, a shocking wisp of divine power that was wrapped in shocking murderous intent suddenly attacked. Almost in the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of the Vajra with the intention of destroying it. That killing intent, anger, and impatience were exceptionally clear. Su Yu's heart sank. The glaze fairy deity was determined to protect the book deity's treasury. In that case, it would be extremely difficult to destroy the book deity's treasury. However, Su Yu didn't doubt Xing Yuanxin's words. If he acted rashly now, the glaze fairy deity would have enough reasons to kill him, just like how he was always looking for reasons to kill Qin Feichen. Just as the Vajra was about to fail, an extraterrestrial godly sword that exuded a great godly power that could penetrate the galaxy and the universe arrived later and cut off the glaze fairy deity's godly power. Bang, or with a loud bang, another shocking explosion broke out near the Green Mountains. Apart from the prospective deity King Kong, who was safe and sound, the vicinity of the 10 Green Mountains was razed to the ground. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the divine power condensed by King Kong penetrated the bookshelf. Numerous shattering sounds could be heard as books exploded one after another. The millions of years' worth of information collected inside were all buried. In the end, even the bookshelf was destroyed and split into two. Seeing this, Qin Feichen's face stiffened, and his face turned ashen. The glaze fairy deity, who was on her way back, also descended into the book deity's cavern world at this moment. With a thought, she appeared in the book deity's family. Looking at the destruction of 1,000 books that contained all the knowledge, especially the record of 100 gods, that revealed the secrets of the gods, the glaze fairy deity was furious. She pointed a finger at Vajra. This finger attack was meant to destroy Vajra's divine origin and soul together. The corners of Su Yu's mouth curled up into a faint smile. Jingang flickered to the side, but he didn't run away. Instead, he shouted loudly, "Ha ha ha! Anyway, I'm going to kill you deity's descendants today. Even if I die, it'll be worth it. However, brat, you've been chasing me for the longest time. Before I die, I'll take you down with me." As he spoke, Jingang pounced at Su Yu fiercely. But what happened next shocked everyone. Su Yu said indifferently, "You came at the right time. I'll die with you." He controlled the giant soldier god to lift its leg, and then King Kong rolled to the ground. Shortly after, Su Yu stamped his foot down. Vajra dead. Su Yu moved the foot of the giant soldier god, and King Kong was reduced to a pile of meat paste. Only his soul was holding onto a mass of divine origin, and he was extremely weak. Su Yu shook his head and sighed. What a horrifying way of fighting! Perishing together is so powerful. He almost succeeded. Many of the surrounding creatures were in a state of confusion. Indeed, it was a horrifying way of fighting. Burrowing under the feet of the enemy and waiting for death in silence. This was a scam. Qin Feichen was so angry that he vomited blood. Now that things had come to this, how could he not see that Jingang was under Su Yu's control? The glaze fairy deity's eyes turned cold as she glanced at Su Yu, surrounded by murderous intentions. However, she looked at the sky with some fear. Just now, a powerful deity had intervened at the last moment, giving Jingang the opportunity to destroy the book deity's treasury. Apart from the sword deity, there was no one else who could have such an overwhelming sword power. If she attacked Su Yu without any reason, the sword deity might take this opportunity to attack her. With a flicker of her eyes, the glaze fairy deity locked onto Jingang and tried to grab his soul. After searching Jingang's soul, she could find out from his memory whether he was being controlled by Su Yu. If this was true, then plotting to destroy and slaughter the book deity's family was a capital crime. Not even 100 deities could pardon him. However, Jingang suddenly smiled miserably. I didn't expect that perishing together with you still couldn't do anything to you, Su Yu. Forget it. A man's words are kind when he is about to die. I have done many evil deeds in my life. Before I die, I will give you the celestial energy sphere. I hope you can help me find a kind person and give him the celestial energy sphere. I will carry my last wish and do good to others, so that my sins can be washed away. As he spoke, Jingang handed the celestial energy sphere to Su Yu. He sat down with his legs crossed and looked like he had been freed. Goodbye, Su Yu, goodbye, beautiful world, I'm leaving. After saying that, with a puff, his soul was annihilated and turned into waves of aura, disappearing from the world. The glaze fairy deity grabbed nothing but air and was furious. This was killing to silence him. How could Su Yu not see such a huge flaw in this matter? As soon as he saw the glaze fairy deity's strange expression, Su Yu immediately ordered Jingong's soul to self-destruct. Looking at the dissipating aura of the soul, Su Yu sighed deeply. Although he had killed countless people in his life, he had an epiphany before his death. He was willing to use the celestial energy sphere to wash away his sins, which was really a great kindness. The onlookers were dumbfounded. Are you insulting the intelligence of the people with such poor acting skills? However, there was no evidence to prove that Jingang was controlled by Su Yu. Although they were dumbfounded, they didn't dare to make a presumptuous assertion, because even the glaze fairy deity could only stare at Su Yu coldly and couldn't attack him recklessly. Qin Feichen was so angry that he turned to hatred. Su Yu. The book deity's family has been established for thousands of generations, but today it was destroyed by you. How are you going to compensate me? As far as the eye could see, only less than 10% of the people of the book deity's family, especially the direct descendants of the bloodline, were left. It could be said that all of them had been killed. The resources of the book deity's family, including the training room and the storage room of the divine path, which were extremely important and couldn't be restored, were all destroyed. It could be said that the foundation of the book deity's family was destroyed. This generation might not be able to see it, but the next generation would have nothing. How could the book deity's family continue to thrive? Without the help of external forces, the family would inevitably decline from generation to generation. He didn't hate Su Yu at first. He just wanted to capture or kill him, but now he hated Su Yu to the core. However, he didn't think that he was innocent of trying to kill Su Yu twice. Hearing that, Su Yu's face turned cold. Nephew Feichen, I will let bygones be bygones because of your young age. However, if you dare to speak nonsense again, don't blame me for being rude. Chapter 1165. Nephew Feichen, tell me, why did I control the giant? Su Yu sneered. I came here to help the book deity's family expel the killers of the Netherworld faction. If I hadn't arrived here earlier, the book deity's family would have been wiped out. How could you keep these important places when you were gone? They would still be taken away by others. So, Nephew Feichen, you should know right from wrong. I, the feather deity, am the savior of the book deity's family. Without me, you wouldn't be where you are now. Instead, you blame me. Heh heh, I heard that the book deities in the past were all gentlemen who treated people with courtesy. I didn't expect that the current successor is an ungrateful and narrow-minded man. I think you should resign from the position of the young master and give it to someone else. Puff. In the dark, it was as if there was a god who almost laughed out loud. Qin Feichen was so angry that his face turned red. That killer was killed by you. Before he finished his words, the glaze fairy deity stopped him in time. Su Yu squinted his eyes and said calmly, What did I do to that killer? Nephew Feichen, tell me. The glaze fairy deity stared at Qin Feichen and shouted, Calm down. Don't be fooled. Being stopped by her, Qin Feichen came back to his senses. When he saw the killing intent in Su Yu's eyes, he was a bit surprised. That was close. If he said Jingang was ordered by Su Yu without any evidence, he would be accused of slandering a deity. Although he wouldn't be sentenced to death, he would be taken away by the Sunluo law enforcing envoys. Xing Yuanxin was beside him. Once he was taken away, without the protection of the Glaze Fairy deity, who could predict whether another killer of the Netherworld faction would jump out and kill him on the way back. Thinking of this, Qin Feichen calmed down quickly. Su Yu's actions were flawless and left traps everywhere. If he was careless, he would fall into a more dangerous situation. Staring at Su Yu coldly, Qin Feichen, who had calmed down, said with a smile, "Feather deity, thank you for killing the killers of the Netherworld faction and saving our lives. On behalf of the Book Deity's cavern world, I thank you sincerely." Looking at him who lowered his head and surrendered, Su Yu wasn't happy at all. Instead, his killing intent became more intense. He could even suppress the enmity of nearly having his clan exterminated. His expression was calm. This person was extremely dangerous. It was a pity that the Glaze Fairy deity was around. Otherwise, she would have been able to get rid of Qin Feichen no matter what. "Haha, I'm glad that nephew Feichen has such thoughts," Su Yu said with a faint smile. "However, as you can see, in order to save the Book Deity's family from disaster, we have traveled a long way. I don't mind, but the rest of you need some replenishment." Hearing this, the crowd was secretly shocked. How ruthless! Not only did he exterminate 90% of his clansmen, but he still claimed to be his savior and asked for benefits. If it were them, they would absolutely not tolerate it even if they had to pierce through the heavens. "All right." Qin Feichen smiled and took out a book from his space ring. "I have nothing to repay you with. This book contains many martial arts. After a long time, it has developed its own spirituality. It knows the flaws of many cultivation techniques. I'll give this to you all as a token of my gratitude." Wang Yunxian was slightly startled as he transmitted his voice. Hey, psychic book, that's good stuff. Even the Book Deity's family only has 2 or 3 books. You are going to get something good this time." However, he found that Su Yu's face was full of calmness and killing intent. The more Wang Yunxian endured, the more dangerous Su Yu felt. The two purposes of this trip were to destroy the Book Deity's treasury and kill Qin Feichen. It seemed that the latter was a great hidden danger. This man must be eliminated. Su Yu put away the psychic book with a smile and said, "Nephew Feichen, you don't have to be so polite. As members of the Great Eastern Alliance, we should help each other. If the Book Deity's family is in trouble next time, please inform me, and I will come to your aid immediately." Hearing this, everyone was shocked. This devil was going to come again. "Thank you, Feather Deity," Qin Feichen said with a smile. Su Yu nodded and led the crowd to leave, leaving the Book Deity's family, which was almost destroyed. Looking at Su Yu's departing back, the smile on Qin Feichen's face turned into a gloomy expression only after Su Yu had left. His whole body trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but clench his teeth and clench his fists tightly. He knew this was Su Yu's revenge. What he didn't know was that Su Yu's revenge would be so fierce, vicious, and ruthless. If the Glaze Fairy deity hadn't been here today, he, the young master, would have been killed by Su Yu. He was somewhat regretful. If he didn't kill the snake, he would be harmed instead. "Su Yu, I will tear you into pieces." Qin Feichen was full of hatred. The Glaze Fairy deity said, "Don't do it now. Tomorrow is the Carnival of all gods. Many deities will participate in it. Remember not to be impulsive." Qin Feichen smiled deeply. "Of course I won't do it again. However, during the Carnival of all gods, some deities will kill him for me and turn him into ashes." "You mean?" The Glaze Fairy deity said approvingly, "I am very pleased that you can calm down so quickly. However, as I said, act cautiously and don't expose yourself. Don't worry, this time I will kill him without a burial place." Qin Feichen said coldly. After leaving the book deity's cavern world, Xing Yuanxin saw Su Yu didn't say a word along the way. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "Are you afraid of the glaze fairy deity?" "Don't worry, your identity is different now. He won't dare to attack you casually." Alas! How on earth can I get rid of Qin Feichen? Su Yu sighed as he murmured to himself. Xing Yuanxin stopped talking abruptly. She looked at Su Yu in surprise and thought to herself, why is he still thinking about the heir of the tree deity's family after he made them so miserable? This guy is so evil. Right, he is full of evil tricks. Wang Yunxian, who was standing aside, was so excited that his face was flushed. Hee, it is really exciting to follow you, Su Yu. You subdued the assassins of the Netherworld faction first. Then, you rushed to the tree deity's family and slaughtered almost all the members of the book deity's family. You even destroyed the book deity's treasury, a peerless divine artifact. Ha ha ha, how satisfying! Especially Qin Feichen. He even had to thank you with a smile and give you a big gift to repay you. Ha ha ha, I feel so happy just thinking of his face. Wang Yunxian said with a laugh, what should we do next? Should we find his father, the book deity, and teach him a lesson? To Wang Yunxuan's surprise, Su Yu, who was frowning, suddenly said with his eyes lit up, great idea. What? Xing Yuanxin and Wang Yunxian were shocked at the same time. They couldn't believe what they had just heard. Chapter 1166. Little Su, I was just talking about it. I didn't dare to beat a deity. If my father found out that I beat a deity, he would beat me up. Wang Yunxian said angrily. Su Yu said with a cold smile, I didn't just beat the book deity. I also wanted to erase them from this world forever. I hope Qin Feichen won't let me down. Them? Isn't there only one book deity? Also, what does this have to do with Qin Feichen? Xing Yuanxin was full of questions. Since she met Su Yu, she always felt she couldn't keep up with his thoughts. Even Yang Tai couldn't figure out what Su Yu was thinking about with a wry smile. Heh. It seems the carnival of all gods will be more interesting, Su Yu said with a mysterious smile. Xing Yuanxin said angrily as she stamped her foot, You always want to do something big. We haven't finished our business yet. What? Yang Tai and Wang Yunxuan's eyes lit up as they stared at them in surprise. Xing Yuanxin said hurriedly, Don't overthink it. He and I are dealing with a matter together. Then, she pulled Su Yu's sleeve and flew aside. She said seriously, I searched the soul of the demonic god of withered bones. It was weird. His memory was erased by someone. I don't know whether he was ordered to go to Jiuzhou or not. His memory was erased by force? Su Yu squinted his eyes. His soul must have reached a high level in order to achieve this, right? Even though Su Yu had cultivated the illusionary soul realm to the top, he didn't encounter the power of erasing memories. It's more than a high level. Only a deity of the soul path could achieve this. In other words, a deity of the soul path helped him. Xing Yuanxin said, I know you suspect the glaze fairy deity helped him. However, she is not a deity of the soul path, and there is no deity of the soul path in the Great Eastern Alliance. Hearing that, Su Yu squinted his eyes. Someone must have helped him, right? Who was it? Could it be a deity was hiding in the Great Eastern Alliance? My mother said that the more it was like this, the more it proved that Qin Ku's act of saving the devil race was no small matter. Why would the gods need to take action for an ordinary devil race? What do you know about the devil clan? Xing Yuanxin frowned. Su Yu thought for a moment, then said, Oh, I remember now. When he was being hunted by the Almighty, he seemed to have threatened that if anyone dared to kill him, his mother and father would not let him off. He also said that he was a combination of a human god and a demon god. Upon hearing this, Xing Yuanxin was taken aback. No wonder they went to such great lengths to rescue him. The human god hiding behind the scenes is most likely his father or mother. Narrowing down the scope, The god involved in this case must be a human god. This is such an important news. Why did you only tell me now? Xing Yuanxin was a little angry. Su Yu replied helplessly, I didn't think too much about it. In fact, it would be better for him to release the information bit by bit to gain control of Xing Yuanxin. It would be useless to release everything at once. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm going to tell my mother, Zhang Xiao, about what you did today. Xing Yuanxin was in a hurry to leave. She stomped her feet and left. Wang Yunxian and Yang Tai exchanged a glance and revealed a playful smile. They said goodbye to Su Yu respectively. Gosh, little brat, I know you have more exciting things to do tomorrow, but I have to go back now. What a disappointment. Wang Yunxian said goodbye to Su Yu. Yang Tai also said, Tomorrow is the carnival of all gods. As the inheritors, we have to go with the deities. So, we have to leave now. See you tomorrow, Su Yu said as he folded his hands at them and saw them off. Looking at the enormous giant divine soldier, Su Yu touched his chin and said, Listen to my order. Swish. A ghost appeared in front of Su Yu and said, Yes, Your Excellency. Swish. Su Yu threw him a list, which was filled with all kinds of precious materials. He then said, Ask the intelligence personnel to pay close attention to the materials on this list, such as metal ores and the like. If they are found, use the wealth we have in secret to buy them. As for those natural treasures, if they are mature, buy all of them. If not, buy their seeds and root. Yes, Your Excellency. The ghost left with the list in his hand. The beautiful emerald eyes of the tree goddess rolled. It seems you are training a team in the dark. They are all ghosts, right? Right, they are the most suitable intelligence personnel. So, what do you want to say? Su Yu asked as he turned around. The tree goddess's eyes lit up. Of course. Can I also participate in the carnival of all gods? Have you ever seen a person inviting a mouse into his rice tank? Su Yu said calmly. The tree goddess pouted her red lips. How could you describe a lovely and charming goddess like me as a mouse? Exactly. I did make a mistake. How could I describe you as a mouse? I apologize to the many mouse seniors. I have humiliated your great mouse Go. The tree goddess stared at Su Yu, and her emerald eyes were sizing him up. A malicious light flickered in her eyes as she said, I almost forgot. Why didn't I rob a rich man like you? Why did I even consider becoming your subordinate? Grinning, the tree goddess showed a fierce expression. Since you are not willing to give in and not willing to marry me, divorce me, and then happily divide the assets, I can only bear my terrifying fangs. This goddess announces that I am going to rob you now. Oh? You don't want to go to the carnival of all gods tomorrow? There are millions of years celestial energy spheres in it, which can help you recover your strength completely. Since you want to go our separate ways so soon, fine. I will give you some divine coins. Now you can go your own way. Hey, what are you talking about? When did I say I want to go our separate ways? The tree goddess was slender and elegant. She had a beautiful and innocent look on her face as she blinked her bright and clear eyes. She was a completely different person from before. Who said he was going to bare his horrible fangs just now? It was a mouse. Then, who said he was going to rob me? It was a blind bee asterisk starred who should be struck by lightning. Boom, boom. A few thunderbolts flashed in the clear sky. Our tree goddess's expression did not change. She stood there elegantly and gracefully. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? Su Yu sighed deeply as he flew to the crane deity's cavern world alone. The tree goddess caught up with him in an elegant and tranquil manner. She asked softly, What is the god's sacrifice to the source of gods that you mentioned? Meow, 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 meow. The tree goddess said without hesitation. Puppy. Woof, woof, woof. You are the best among all the gods. Su Yu sighed again. The carnival of all gods was held every 10 years to worship the fallen gods. The Great Eastern Alliance established itself in the starry sky. From nothing to today's glory, it was full of bitterness. How many gods died in the battle with the wild beasts? How many gods died in the invasion of the demon race? How many gods died in the conflict between the major races? The current Great Eastern Alliance was built on the sacrifice of the past gods, which made it such a bright and prosperous holy land. The dead gods were buried in the most central cavern world of the Great Eastern Alliance. That cavern world was where the gods were buried. It was the tomb of the gods. Out of respect for them, every 10 years, the gods of the Great Eastern Alliance would go there to worship. Although those gods died, many of them kept their celestial energy sphere intact. Every time they worshipped, their celestial energy sphere would be shaken, and all the cavern worlds would be blessed, making the Great Eastern Alliance more prosperous. Even if their souls were destroyed, their will still ran through the celestial energy sphere, and their hearts were connected to the Great Eastern Alliance. This ceremony was very grand, and all the gods in the Great Eastern Alliance must attend. The next morning, the Jing deity came to invite Suyu. Together, Suyu left the cavern world of the crane deity and went directly to the tomb of the gods. In the center of the cavern world, there were 100 stone pillars, which were also set up by 100 gods, representing 100 cavern worlds. Suyu flew to the stone pillar of the crane deity's family and looked around secretly. At present, 40 gods had come, and more than half of the gods had not come. There are less than half of the gods in the Great Eastern Alliance. If the demons attack with all their strength, the consequences will be unimaginable. Suyu thought while looking around secretly. The arrangement of the stone pillars was in order of the gods' ranking. The stone pillars of Suyu and the Jing deity were at the end. Among the top 9 gods, Suyu only knew the sword deity. The other 8 gods were quite strange to him. However, Xing Yuanxin was standing beside a woman who was covered with gray divine light. Suyu knew this woman was the Xing deity, who ranked 3rd among the 100 gods. Yang Tai was standing behind a god who was covered with divine coins. Suyu guessed this was the all-access deity who controlled 1/5 of the wealth of the Great Eastern Alliance. Among the top 20 gods, Suyu found Wang Yunxian was standing behind a pot-bellied god, who should be the instrument deity. At the same time, Suyu also found a familiar man standing behind a stone pillar of a god. Qin Feichen. When the gods were not here, the successors of the gods would worship on behalf of the god. The book deity has a high position among the 100 gods, Suyu thought to himself. Suddenly, one of the top 20 gods looked at Suyu. Suyu looked at her and found it was the old woman who was standing beside the glaze fairy deity. She was about 70 or 80 years old. After glancing at Suyu calmly, she looked away as if nothing had happened. Law Enforcer Glaze? Suyu said to himself. Swish. All of a sudden, divine light rippled in the sky. A touch of holy and gentle light enveloped people's hearts, making them feel warm and comfortable. From afar, it was a beautiful woman who was covered by a white divine light. Her body was emitting a holy and pure aura. After landing on the top stone pillar lightly, the woman turned around and bowed her head slightly to all the gods and their representatives. That kowtow fully displayed her demeanor. It was gentle, yet it didn't lose its dignity and solemnity. From her words and deeds, Suyu could tell this deity was a very benevolent one. Dakini. Suyu's eyes were filled with awe. The middle-aged woman in front of him was the top deity of the Great Eastern Alliance, Dakini. Although no one called her a deity, everyone knew that Dakini was the supreme deity of the Great Eastern Alliance. Some people called her the deity king secretly. Chapter 1167. Welcome, Dakini. The all-access deity, the Xing deity, the sword deity, and the other deities, as well as their representatives, greeted her. Dakini smiled and said, "Get up, the carnival of all gods is about to begin." Like a motherly model of the world, Dakini led the deities to worship. Everyone closed their eyes. The deities released their celestial energy sphere, while Su Yu, who was not a deity, could only pray silently. Soon, as if sensing their celestial energy sphere, fluctuations of celestial energy sphere appeared in all directions of the cavern world. The ancient tombs where the gods were buried conveyed the will of the fallen gods. They released the remaining celestial energy sphere one by one. It could be clearly sensed that the whole world was releasing a huge celestial energy sphere, penetrating the cavern world of the tombs of the deities, radiating to the entire Great Eastern Alliance. After a while, Dakini opened her eyes and took back the celestial energy sphere. She looked at the crowd gently and said, "The deities have responded. All deities and representatives, please go to the tombs of your deities to comfort the souls." Although the deities were dead, their wills were still there. Strong wills could even be condensed and had independent thinking, which was almost equal to the existence of a soul. The souls of the top 30 deities could condense into wills after they died. Therefore, for the top 30 deity families, every carnival of all gods was a time of great harvest, because those wills often contained the wills of the deities who had protected their families when they were alive. Therefore, if they went to comfort the souls, the will of the ancestors might grant them grace, teach them some unique skills that had not been passed on to the descendants, or give them instructions on cultivation on the spot, and so on. As long as they had the blood of the ancestors, they could be recognized by the ancestors. Xing Yuanxin was worshipping the Xing deity in front of the Xing deities. Suddenly, a figure came over and bowed to the Xing deities. Xing Yuanxin looked at it and was dumbfounded. "Feather deity? You didn't worship the crane deity, but my ancestors?" After a solemn and respectful worship, Su Yu looked straight ahead. The Xing deities of the past have shed their blood for the Great Eastern Alliance. Although I have just joined the alliance, I have great respect for them. I would like to take this opportunity to pay my respects to all of you. I hope that all the Xing deities will bless the Great Eastern Alliance, and that it will never decline. Looking at his serious expression, Xing Yuanxin's eyes were filled with suspicion. She didn't believe that this guy would be so kind. After that, Su Yu stood up and said to Xing Yuanxin with a faint smile, "The crane deity's family only has the tombs of the third-generation deity. I've worshipped them with all my heart. I'll take this opportunity to worship the deities one by one. Goodbye." After saying that, Su Yu left in a carefree manner and went to the next tomb of a deity to worship. Xing Yuanxin muttered in a low voice, "This guy, is he planning something again? Many gods' tombs have the will of the gods. If you anger them, no one can save you. Is he Su Yu?" The Xing deity on the side glanced at Su Yu. Xing Yuanxin nodded. "Yes, it's him. He's a very smart guy with a belly full of evil tricks. There are indeed a lot of evil plans. They're all targeting the god will." The Xing deity smiled. Her tone was a little funny but also a little angry. Xing Yuanxin opened her mouth wide and asked anxiously, "Mother, what did he do to our god's will? This guy is too much. How dare he target the god will of our family?" The Xing deity said with a faint smile, "It's not only the Xing deity. Didn't you notice that he worshipped the tombs of the gods that have condensed the will of the gods?" Xing Yuanxin observed carefully. As expected, she found Su Yu chose the tombs of the gods to worship. She couldn't help but gasp. This guy is too bold. How could he target the god will of so many gods? If he angers one of them, he will be in big trouble. The will of the gods also had emotions. Once it was angry, it could attach itself to the skeleton of the gods and control the skeleton of the gods to fight. Although its combat capability couldn't compare with the gods, it was far beyond Su Yu's capability. Trouble? Not necessarily. Although I don't know how he did it, I sensed the aura of the blood of the gods of the Xing deity when he worshipped the tombs of the gods, the Xing deity said calmly. What? Xing Yuanxin stared at the Xing deity in surprise and stammered, "Mother, you mean he is my long-lost brother?" She never expected Su Yu to be her mother's illegitimate son. The Xing deity's body froze. She turned around and stared at Xing Yuanxin angrily. Nonsense. He imitated the aura of the blood. Oh! Xing Yuanxin let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, he is not my brother. Otherwise, he would bully me every day because he is so smart. Since he didn't do anything excessive to the will of the gods of our family, I just pretended not to know, the Xing deity said. Xing Yuanxin's eyes couldn't leave Su Yu anymore. She followed his figure as he jumped over one tomb after another. Finally, he jumped to the front of the tomb of the book deity. Oh no! How dare he worship the tomb of the book deity? The book deity was one of the oldest families in the Great Eastern Alliance. No less than 10 book deities had died in the past generations. There were as many as 5 tombs of the gods that had condensed the will of the gods. As the culprit who destroyed the foundation of the book deity and slaughtered the people of the book deity, wasn't he courting death by going to the front of the tomb? Su Yu didn't notice it at all. When he came to the tombs of the book deities, he was surprised before he worshipped them. This is strange. All the tombs of the book deities are emitting the celestial energy sphere to bless the Great Eastern Alliance. Why is the tomb of the book deity silent? Could it be that none of the book deities have the will to protect the Great Eastern Alliance? His surprise was neither too great nor too small, but everyone present was a god, so how could they not notice? Looking from afar, almost all the tombs of the book deities were emitting the celestial energy sphere to bless the continent. Even the tombs of the crane deity and the Jing deity, whose will couldn't be condensed, still had a faint consciousness left on the continent. Only the tombs of the book deities, including 10 tombs of the book deities, were silent, which formed a sharp contrast among the tombs of the gods. Many gods pretended not to hear it after listening to it. How could they not know this? How could they have no objection? Alas, they were gods who had fallen in the Eastern Divine region after all. Even though their wills had never once left the thought of forming an alliance with the marsh, in the end, the dead were still the most important. Seeing this, they could not say anything. Unexpectedly, Su Yu sighed recklessly and said, "In the end, the gods of the Great Eastern Alliance are merciful. Even the remains of the gods whose hearts are not on the continent are placed in the tombs of the gods to bear the worship of trillions of creatures in the Great Eastern Alliance. In my opinion, these 10 tombs of the gods should be thrown out of the tombs of the gods and thrown into the Xing River. Since they are unwilling to contribute to the continent, why are they shamelessly staying on the continent?" When the gods heard this, they could not help but look at each other. When they exchanged glances, they all smiled helplessly. Isn't that right? The book deity's family was strange enough. It would be acceptable if the first book deity had no intention of protecting the continent when he was alive. But the 10 generations of book deities, even after their deaths, were not willing to let the continent benefit by releasing the source of God to benefit the common people. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the book deity's family had never regarded itself as a member of the Great Eastern Alliance. How could the gods of the Great Eastern Alliance have a good impression of such traitorous gods? Moreover, the book deities of the past had been preparing the treasury of the book deity and probing into the secrets of the gods, which made them even more disgusted. In the eyes of the gods, the book deity's family was a disgusting existence. There were many gods who wanted to throw the tombs of the past book deities into the Xing River. However, the book deities of the past were not weak gods. Moreover, they had a good relationship with the glaze fairy deity. Therefore, before the book deity's family did something terrible, they could not do anything drastic. That was why when Su Yu destroyed the treasury of the book deity, so many gods secretly helped him. The book deity's family was really unpopular. Many deities snickered when they heard Su Yu say what they wanted to say but didn't dare to say. Even Xing Yuanxin said with a slight smile, "Although what he said is outrageous, it is not unreasonable. The 10 tombs of the past book deities are a bit, alas." She sighed. Su Yu sighed even more. In recent decades, the population of the Eastern Divine Realm has skyrocketed, and the land is scarce, especially the tombs of the past. TSK, it is hard to find a suitable place to bury the tombs of the past book deities. As the crane deity of the present generation of the crane deities family, I haven't found a suitable place to bury me until now. Why don't we move the tombs of the past book deities out of this place? I think since their hearts are not in this continent, moving the tombs of the past book deities will also make them very happy. Why not kill two birds with one stone? After saying that, Suyu took out the hoe he had prepared. He was about to dig the tombs. Strangely, many gods present didn't stop Suyu. It seemed they all acquiesced to Suyu's nonsense. At this time, in the deepest part of the tombs of the book deities, Qin Feichen was kneeling on the ground respectfully. He was telling the gods in the tombs what happened to the book deities' family recently. His family was slaughtered, and the foundation of the book deity was destroyed. This was all caused by Suyu alone. Feeling the anger of the book deity's gods, Qin Feichen said with a murderous smile, "Suyu, if I can't kill you with the help of the 5 gods, I will accept my fate." This was Qin Feichen's plan. Suyu would definitely be present at the carnival of all gods. He only needed to tell the ancestors of the book deity about what happened in his family. Then, they would definitely jump out of the tombs of the past book deities and kill Suyu on the spot. Just think about it, the wills of 5 gods. No matter how many prospective deities protected Suyu, it would be useless. The only problem now was how to lure Suyu to the tombs of the book deities. If Suyu attacked from afar, he would be stopped by the other deities. When Qin Feichen was thinking about this, Suyu's extremely disrespectful voice came into his ears. Qin Feichen was furious at first. How could Suyu be so disrespectful to the ancestors of the book deities? However, soon, Qin Feichen smiled coldly. Suyu was really courting death by sending himself to the King of Hell. I was worried about how to lure you here, but you sent yourself to me. Not only that, but you also humiliated the ancestors of the book deities. Even without Qin Feichen's complaint, Suyu's humiliating words and his action of digging the tombs were enough to infuriate the wills of the deities. "Suyu, let's see who can save you." Qin Feichen sneered as if he could see Suyu's fate. Chapter 1168. Suyu's shocking behavior finally angered the will left by the previous deities of the book deity. Transparent bodies were floating above the 5 tombs of the gods. They stared at Suyu with anger in their eyes. This man was bullying the book deity's family. He had killed countless people and destroyed their ancestral grave. How could there be such a vicious man in this world? Suddenly, 5 angry wills full of killing intent ran through the entire cavern world. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the 5 tombs were split open. The wills of the deities attached to the remains of the deities and climbed out of the tombs. Xing Yuanxin opened her mouth widely. People often say that the dead are so angry that they jump out of their coffins. Today, I see a living example. He made the 5 generations of the book deity's family jump out of their coffins in anger. After coming to herself, Xing Yuanxin said, "Mother, please help him for my sake. Otherwise, even the last deity can't stop the wills of the 5 deities." The Xing deity nodded slowly. This man was involved in the Jojo case. She didn't want him to die like this. However, the wills of the 5 generations of the book deities had already jumped out of their coffins. 5 jade-like skeletons flew out of the cracks of the tombs, emitting extremely rich celestial energy sphere. Looking closely, one could see a complete celestial energy sphere in the abdomen of each skeleton, which was rotating slowly. Although they had been dead for many years, their celestial energy spheres were not weaker than the celestial energy sphere of the last deity, like the Jing deity. Suyu sneered. "You would rather die with the celestial energy sphere than leave it to the creatures of the Great Eastern Alliance. You don't regard yourself as a deity of the Great Eastern Alliance. How could you accept the worship of the Alliance? Humph, as expected of a noble family. And all hypocrites. Swoosh. Under the control of his will, the corpse in the front attacked like a deity. Horrible divine energy gushed out from his celestial energy sphere and penetrated Su Yu's body. The other deities were far away. Although they were shocked, they couldn't help Su Yu. Although the nearest deity could help Su Yu, she pretended that she didn't see it and continued to worship. He's courting death. It seems these deities will kill Su Yu even without Qin Feichen's complaint. The glaze fairy deity pondered indifferently. Lu Li, the prospective god at his side, sighed softly. The central prefecture's king died in the hands of such a stupid junior AI. He had provoked the tomb of the god of sin on his own initiative and ended up being killed by the deities in the tomb of the god of sin. If this spread out, it would definitely be a big joke. Seeing that Su Yu was in imminent danger, the glaze fairy deity's face changed slightly. She looked at the 10 ancestral tombs in surprise. Above 6 of the ancestral tombs floated transparent will of the gods. They were filled with anger and killing intent. What happened? The glaze fairy deity frowned. Could it be that Su Yu's actions were so infuriating that even her own deity couldn't stand it? Thinking of this, the glaze fairy deity secretly shook her head. It was true that one could do whatever the heavens wanted, but one couldn't live with one's own evil. Boom, boom, boom. The 6 ancestral tombs of the glaze fairy deity cracked open one after another. The deities will attach to the remains and rushed out of the tombs to attack Su Yu. Xing Yuanxin's expression changed drastically. Mother, hurry up. The Xing deity said, It's too late. If only the deity's will of the book deity's family attacked, she could protect Su Yu from the distance. However, even the deity's will of the glaze fairy deity's family attacked. This double attack was enough to kill Su Yu. Standing in the tombs, Qin Feichen sneered. Since you have humiliated me so much, I will let you die in the hands of the deities of the past generations in public. After killing you, no one will blame the dead deities. This was a perfect way to kill someone with a borrowed knife. After that, all the responsibility would be on the dead person. Who would blame the dead person? However, the next moment, Qin Feichen was shocked as if he had been struck by lightning. His expression froze. Even the glaze fairy deity's face changed abruptly. She exclaimed, Impossible! The ancestral remains of the glaze fairy deity didn't attack Su Yu. Instead, they blocked the attack of the book deity's remains. This sudden scene made many deities feel incredulous. Could it be that the glaze fairy deity secretly asked her ancestors to save Su Yu's life in time? Even Qin Feichen started to doubt it. After the attack of the book deity's remains failed, the other 4 deities' remains dashed out of the tombs and attacked Su Yu with great anger. At the same time, the ancestral remains of the glaze fairy deity also dashed out of the tombs angrily. They surrounded the ancestral remains of the book deity's family and started a group fight. However, apparently, the ancestral remains of the book deity were more powerful than the glaze fairy deity. For so many years, they had never helped any creature on the continent. However, the ancestral remains of the glaze fairy deity were released once every 10 years. In comparison, the celestial energy sphere of the glaze fairy deity's ancestors was not as good as that of the book deity's family. Although they outnumbered the glaze fairy deity, they were obviously at a disadvantage. With a loud crack, the ancestral remains of the glaze fairy deity were broken into pieces. The glaze fairy deity was furious. Those were the ancestors of her family. Su Yu, ask them to stop. The glaze fairy deity shouted without hesitation. She knew it must be Su Yu's trick. However, Su Yu's face was as cold as ice. Glaze fairy deity, what do you mean by that? Even your ancestors couldn't stand it anymore. They didn't want a group of rebellious deities to be buried next to them. So, they attacked them just now. This is their will. What does it have to do with me? The glaze fairy deity was very angry. Then, she turned to Qin Feichen and said, Ask your ancestors to stop. If the news spread out that the ancestors of the two families were fighting each other, they would definitely become a joke in the Great Eastern Alliance. Qin Feichen shook his head bitterly. Now, the ancestors of the book deity were very angry. How could they listen to his advice? After all, they were just wills, not souls. Even though they had the ability to think, it was very simple. It was easy to provoke their wills, but difficult to extinguish their anger. The glaze fairy deity was very angry. So, she decided to attack them herself. However, before she could do anything, she heard many exclamations. The wills of deities appeared in the ancient tombs of more than a dozen families. They controlled the remains of the deities to climb out of the tombs to attack the ancestors of the book deity. No matter how abundant the godly energy of the ancestors of the book deity was, how could they resist the attacks of almost 80 remains of deities? Soon, it was Qin Feichen's turn to look gloomy. The remains of the family of the book deity were soon smashed into pieces in the fight. As far as the eye could see, not even a complete bone could be found. The situation had developed too fast. When the deities arrived, the remains of the family of the book deity had been smashed into pieces. Not only that, the remains of the deities from the families of the book deity bombarded the 10 tombs of the family of the book deity with their wills. Even the 4 tombs that hadn't been attacked were smashed into pieces. The tombs of the family of the book deity that had stood for ages were razed to the ground by the other enraged deities overnight. However, it wasn't over yet. Some remains controlled by the wills of the deities looked at Qin Feichen and attacked him. Their wills were full of anger and killing intent. Qin Feichen's face changed dramatically, and he was terrified. Then, a gentle and deep voice as gentle as that of Mother Earth echoed in the cavern world. The holy light engulfed the remains of the deities' wills. Under the holy light, the anger and killing intent of the deities' wills disappeared, and the world became peaceful again. The remains of the deities returned to their tombs and fell into a deep sleep. The uprising of the corpses of the gods vanished without a trace. Suyu was shocked by this scene. Is this the strength of the Dakini, the #1 deity of the Great Eastern Alliance? She can purify the angry wills of all the deities with a single thought. Looking at the holy Dakini in the sky from afar, Suyu became more vigilant. This deity was extremely horrible. Suyu felt lucky that he didn't plan to attack this deity just now. Otherwise, he would have been suppressed by her when the battle started. Even so, Suyu's plan was disrupted by her. Destroying the tombs of the family of the book deity was just a side effect. The real purpose was to kill Qin Feichen in the chaos. At the last moment, the Dakini attacked. The remains of the deities returned, leaving the broken remains of the family of the book deity and Qin Feichen, who was full of anger and grievance. It was Suyu. He knew it was Suyu's trick. However, he didn't have any evidence. He didn't even know how Suyu used the remains of the deities to attack the family of the book deity. How could he have any evidence? They didn't know Suyu had an amazing imitation ability. He worshipped in front of the tombs of each family to show the strength of the bloodline of that family. Then, the descendants of those families who had the strength of their bloodline were killed in front of them. How could the deities of the guardian families not be angry? Although the deities looked solemn, they couldn't help but laugh secretly. Although the remains of their ancestors were also used by Suyu, they didn't mind using them to destroy the remains of the family of the book deity. Of course, they were still a bit dissatisfied. Who would be happy that an outsider could make the deities attack them? Suyu? What did you do? The Xing deity asked discontentedly. Suyu was confused. How could I know? Maybe it's because of the book deity's family. 10 generations of deities have refused to leave any living creatures, and the wills of the deities here have long been displeased with them. Now that I've exposed the hypocrisy of the ancestors of the book deities, instead of thinking about their mistakes and releasing the godly energy sphere, they want to kill me, a junior who dares to speak the truth. This has infuriated the wills of many deities, and that's why this scene has happened. Su Yu's words were dignified. The deities looked at each other. None of them believed a word of Su Yu's words. However, except for the Glaze Fairy deity, they all chose to ignore it. Ridiculous! The Glaze Fairy deity was extremely angry. The deities have been living in peace for so many years. Why did something happen this year? Tell me, what did you do? After all, not every deity could sense Su Yu's little trick like the Xing deity could. Su Yu said with a fake smile, I don't know what I did. Why don't you figure it out for me, Glaze Fairy deity? The Glaze Fairy deity was annoyed. Su Yu was extremely cunning and meticulous. It was extremely difficult to catch him. As a matter of fact, the Glaze Fairy deity hated the ancestors of the Book deity. As a descendant of the Book deity, I think you should think for the sake of your ancestors. You should either move your ancestral tombs away or move the ancestral tombs of the Book deity away. In this way, your ancestors can rest in peace. Otherwise, they might jump out again one day. That's not good, Su Yu said sincerely. Chapter 1169. The deities exchanged glances with each other. Could they take this opportunity to drive the Book deity's family out of the continent and expel the Book deity from the alliance of 100 deities? In the past, the deities didn't dare to mention the Book deity's treasury because they were afraid that their secrets would be exposed. Now they could think about it. If the Book deity built another Book deity's treasury, their secrets would still be exposed after several generations, which would be very bad. While everyone was lost in their thoughts, the Dakini spoke gently, You are all heroes who have protected the land. Even if you do not wish to leave your legacy behind after your death, you should not forget what you have done when you were alive. It would be too narrow-minded of us to criticize you for this. As gods, we should forgive you. Hearing this, Su Yu frowned slightly. Was she saying that he was narrow-minded? Su Yu didn't agree with her. When did the Book deity's family protect the continent? If they really had the will to protect the continent, how could they not have the will to protect the continent after their death? 1 or 2 generations were fine, but 10 generations were like this. Su Yu couldn't help but doubt the Book deity's family's intention in the alliance. No matter how he looked at it, they didn't take the Great Eastern Alliance as their route. They just occupied a seat among the 100 deities. The Dakini's words were full of tolerance and love. However, in Su Yu's eyes, she was a saint who didn't distinguish good from bad. They treated the Book deity's family so generously, but they didn't do anything. Instead, they schemed to grasp the weaknesses of the gods. Then, what would the gods who shed blood for the alliance and their descendants think? Many deities felt sorry and discontented, but they couldn't do anything about it. The Dakini's words weren't wrong. They just couldn't be convinced. Although they were not convinced, they could only be convinced. As you wish, Dakini. Su Yu sighed silently. He finally understood why the Book deity's family could survive for so long. It was all because of the king of all deities who was a saint. Staring at the Dakini, Su Yu became more vigilant. There were 2 kinds of saints in the world. One was the pure and loving ones, and the other was the ones with ulterior motive. He didn't know which kind the Dakini belonged to. The carnival of all gods is over. Deities, please go back. The world of the god's tomb is about to be closed, the Dakini said. With such an absurd disturbance, the carnival of all gods could only end early. Originally, the remains of the deities should have continued to release the source of God for an entire year. However, what happened just now had interrupted the process. They could no longer continue, so they could only end the process prematurely. Yes. The deities returned to their respective families, repaired the cracks in the tomb of the god of sin, and then left in scattered groups. All in all, even though it lacked some nourishment from the divine origin, the gods were still quite satisfied with what happened today. Su Yu had said what they didn't dare to say and did what they didn't dare to do. Ha ha ha, this feather deity is very interesting. Such a hothead is perfect to deal with the hypocrites of the Book deity's family. The Jing deity, who was at the side, snorted disdainfully. If they really treated him as a hothead, he would die a terrible death. It's just a pity that Our Lady Dakini is too compassionate. Sigh, that's why she allowed the book deity's family to exist for such a long time, even accumulating such a forbidden item as the book deity's treasury. All the gods sighed helplessly. Tombs of the gods, in front of the tomb of the book god. Qin Feichen looked at the wreckage on the ground, his eyes filled with hatred. Su Yu, you are too cruel. He wanted to destroy the book deity's family from the inside out, including the tombs of the past generations. The glaze fairy deity's face was gloomy. Collect all the remains first, especially the divine origin. Hearing this, Qin Feichen endured the endless shame and hatred and cleaned up everything. His face was filled with boundless hatred. You killed the family of the book deity. You destroyed the foundation of the book deity for generations. You destroyed the ancestors of the book deity. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable, Qin Feichen said coldly. The glaze fairy deity couldn't help but sympathize with Su Yu. Su Yu was too cruel. When he attacked, he was ruthless and domineering. In just 2 days, he destroyed the book deity's family with an excuse. If Qin Feichen had been more cautious, the situation might have been different. Feichen, don't be impulsive. Wait for the book deity to come back. He will handle everything properly, Qin Feichen said with a self-deprecating smile. It will take a year for my father to come back. Uncle, will Su Yu wait patiently for a year? Of course not. The glaze fairy deity said, before the book deity comes back, you will be in the glaze fairy family. Do you think Su Yu can attack my family? The glaze fairy deity's eyes were filled with cold light. Qin Feichen shook his head. Uncle Lucien, the situation is different now. In the past, when we controlled the book deity's treasury, the deities were afraid of us and didn't dare to attack the book deity's family. However, didn't you see the situation today? Without the protection of the Dakini, the ancestors of the book deity's family would have been banished from the continent by them. If Su Yu attacks me with great fanfare, the deities will help him secretly. Uncle Lucien, how can you resist the secret help of so many deities? The glaze fairy deity didn't speak. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Indeed, the situation was different now. The deities had joined forces to help Su Yu destroy the book deity's treasury. If Su Yu attacked the glaze fairy family openly and destroyed the book deity's family, those deities would help Su Yu secretly even if they didn't show up. All the deities were on Su Yu's side. So, there's no point in trying to escape, Qin Feichen said. The only way for me to survive is to take drastic measures and kill him. Qin Feichen felt remorseful that his family was ruined and he had no home to return to. He shouldn't have attacked Su Yu. If he could do it all over again, he would never attack Su Yu and put himself in a desperate situation alone. Do you have a solution? The glaze fairy deity asked. Qin Feichen nodded slowly. Yes, it's a drastic move, a move that even the deities in the world dare not save Su Yu. Tell me about it. I will try my best to help you if I can. The glaze fairy deity raised her eyebrows. She knew what Qin Feichen was going to do. Qin Feichen said, Su Yu seems to be powerful now, but he has a fatal weakness. That is, he violated the alliance of 100 deities. He killed the law enforcer Qin Kuo with his own hands. Just this alone is a capital offense, and no one will be able to pardon it. Those who kill law enforcers will be killed without mercy. This is the covenant signed by 100 deities, and it is the highest rule. Even the deities themselves can't violate it. If this truth is revealed, no one, including the Jing deity and the Dakini, the king of all deities, can forgive Su Yu's crime. However, if he reveals the cause and effect to the public, won't we be in a passive position? After all, Qin Kuo was killed to protect the Central Prefecture's king. This can't be hidden from the deities. Colluding with the demon race is a more serious crime than killing a law enforcer. It is a taboo clause in the alliance of 100 deities. Once violated, not only will the person be implicated, but the whole family will also be uprooted. The lightest punishment will be expulsion from the Great Eastern Alliance. The Glaze Fairy deity said seriously. Qin Feichen's plan was really dangerous. This plan is really dangerous, and it is a bit suicidal. Because of this, Su Yu will never expect that I would take such a risk. Only in this way can we catch him by surprise. Qin Feichen's face was full of confidence. In addition, in order to eliminate the risk, we should not give Su Yu any chance to speak. We must kill him before he meets the 100 deities. The Glaze Fairy deity thought about it. Even if Su Yu's death aroused the suspicion of the deities, he was dead. What was the use of suspicion? Uncle Glaze Fairy deity, I need your help in secret. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for me to assassinate Su Yu alone. The Glaze Fairy deity thought about it. Was it really worth it to bet the whole Glaze Fairy family to kill Su Yu? However, when she realized that Su Yu was the only person who knew that the Glaze Fairy family and the Book Deity's family colluded with the demon race, she suddenly wanted to kill him. Okay. Let's discuss the plan now. We must kill Su Yu. Standing in front of the tomb of the Crane Deity's family, Su Yu did not move for a long time. His mind was filled with countless thoughts. If he failed to kill Qin Feichen with a borrowed knife, there would be endless troubles in the future. If Qin Feichen is not stupid, he should know that after leaving the tomb of the deities, I will do everything I can to kill him before the Book Deity comes back. He should also know that the time, place, and people are all in my hands now. No matter where he hides, he will die. He knows he is in a desperate situation, so he can only fight back. Su Yu's eyes were shining. He had analyzed Qin Feichen's current state and even his psychological activities thoroughly. If I were Qin Feichen, in this desperate situation, I would take drastic measures and take the risk to launch a fatal blow to me. He would expose me for killing a law enforcer. In order to stop me from talking and bury the truth that they colluded with the demon race, I will never have a chance to defend myself. Before I meet the deities, I will be assassinated. If Qin Feichen was here, he would definitely be overwhelmed with shock, as Su Yu had analyzed his plan perfectly. If that's the case, the situation is really dangerous, Su Yu said to himself. Su Yu thought to himself. How to get rid of the accusation and how to avoid the assassination of deity-level strong men were extremely difficult. With Su Yu's current strength, he couldn't resist the attack of any deity. Even if he was lucky enough to avoid the assassination of the deities and see the deities, how could he get rid of the crime? If he couldn't get rid of the crime, he would still die. These two desperate situations troubled Su Yu and made him frown deeply. Qin Feichen was really a person who would cause endless troubles in the future. It would be extremely dangerous if he was not killed. Let's see who is better in the end. Su Yu's eyes were filled with cold light. The next battle should be the last one between Su Yu and Qin Feichen. If Su Yu was defeated, he would die without a burial place. If Qin Feichen was defeated, not only him, but also the Book Deity and the related deities who participated in the battle would be uprooted. It was foreseeable that the next battle between them would be full of great changes and endless dangers. Next, let's see how many benefits I can get in the tomb of the deities. Su Yu had a sense of urgency in his heart. In the final situation, the final battle between him and the family of the Book Deity and the related deities was coming. After leaving the world of the tomb of the deities, Su Yu met the Jing deity. Where is Xing Yuanxin? The Jing deity's eyes flashed. He was nervous and anxious. Su Yu said, "She is on her way." As expected, Xing Yuanxin rushed over. She looked at Su Yu and the Jing deity and said vigilantly, "Are we really going to do this? Once we are discovered, it will be a serious crime that will anger the deities. Especially if those deities find out, it will be even more dangerous." Chapter 1170. Seeing that they were about to be exposed, Su Yu said, "So we have to be more careful, and we must not let a fourth person know. Yes. Don't worry, my mother supports us. As long as we don't make a big noise, she will help us cover it up, Xing Yuanxin said. Regarding the investigation of this case, the Xing deity did her best to help. Even with Su Yu and the Jing deity, she still secretly supported them. Hearing this, the Jing deity's doubts were dispelled. At this time, around the cavern world where the tombs of the gods were worshipped, a layer of light mixed with hundreds of divine powers gradually emerged, covering the entire world, forming a layer of enchantment. In this way, not to mention ordinary creatures, even the gods would not be able to open the enchantment without more than 20 gods working together to open it. At the same time, the gods of the heavens left one after another and did not stay. Su Yu, the Jing deity, and Xing Yuanxin looked at each other and pretended to leave. Half a day later, they quietly came to the edge of the cavern world of the tombs of the god. I have been preparing for this day for a long time. The Jing deity licked his lips and took out a small colorful flag, which was mixed with more than 20 kinds of God's power. It was the power of the gods that he had worked hard to collect. Although the power contained in it was weak, if it was used, it could sense the enchantment and open a small passage that was enough for 3 people to enter. After the preparation, the Jing deity activated the flag and successfully opened the passage, and the 3 of them entered. The movement was so subtle that it was almost undetectable, but it did not alarm any of the gods. After re-entering the tombs of the gods, Su Yu looked at the tombs and said, "Let's act separately. Xing Yuanxin and I will go to the tombs of the Book deity and the Glaze Fairy deity respectively, and the Jing deity will be responsible for guarding." Hearing this, the Jing deity frowned. The original plan was not like this. If he was responsible for guarding, there would be no time to plunder the celestial source origin. Wouldn't it be a wasted trip? Su Yu quietly glanced at Xing Yuanxin, and the Jing deity was relieved. As the daughter of the Xing deity, presumably she did not want her act of stealing the celestial source origin to be watched by the Jing deity. No problem. I'll be in charge of keeping watch. You two go ahead and search. The Jing deity understood Xing Yuanxin's meaning and agreed readily. However, his eyes were looking around and he secretly licked his lip. As long as he didn't go to the Glaze Fairy deity's family's tomb and didn't meet with Xing Yuanxin, it wouldn't be a problem to plunder the godly source of any tomb. A trace of excitement appeared in his eyes. His plan of many years was finally going to succeed. Xing Yuanxin was a little surprised. Why did they have to search for the Glaze Fairy deity's family's tomb? This was different from the plan. However, after thinking about it carefully, the Glaze Fairy deity's family was very suspicious. Since he had taken the risk to come here, he couldn't come here for nothing. Xing Yuanxin nodded, sure. After saying that, she entered the tombs of the Glaze Fairy deity. Before entering, she glanced at Su Yu and said, "I'm warning you, except for collecting clues, you are not allowed to touch anything in the tombs. I am the captain of the Sunluo Law Enforcement Team. I will not sit by and watch you go astray." Su Yu smiled. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." The 3 of them split up. Su Yu came to the tombs of the Book deity's family and said with a smile, "Come on, let me see how abundant the godly source of the Book deity's family is." In the previous riots of the remains of the Book deity's family, all the remains of the Book deity's family were shattered, including the will of the gods. Therefore, he could plunder the godly source of the gods without alerting anyone. After sneaking into the tombs, the tree god came out before Su Yu released the 9 jade spiritual pearl. Looking at the broken bones and the amazing godly source of the gods, the tree god's eyes widened. What a complete godly source of the gods! Su Yu sneered. Of course it was complete. The remains of the Book deities were buried together with the hundreds of deities. They were protected by the power of the deities and were not damaged at all. Naturally, they were complete. I only need 1 mass to restore me to the later stage of the prospective deity realm. 2 masses to restore me to my peak. 3 masses, There is no third mass. Su-yu summoned the god Kylan and said, "If you devour the godly source of the book deity, it should be enough for you to restore part of it." The god Kylan opened his mouth wide and said in horror, "This is the forbidden area of the Great Eastern Alliance, the tombs of the deities. Boy, how did you sneak in here?" Since he was rescued by Su-yu, he had been in the world of the martial arts tower and had no idea about the outside world. "Don't worry about that. You can replenish as much as you can," Su-yu said. There were 5 complete masses of godly source of the gods here. 2 were for the book deity, 2 were for the god Kylan, and the last one was left. After thinking for a while, Su-yu said, "Since you have sensed it, come out. The last one is for you." "Haha, boy, why are you so kind?" The evil god's strange laughter came from between Su-yu's eyebrows. However, it still came out on its own. With a flash of blood-red light, a drop of blood floated out. Then, it turned into a giant dog that was full of evil energy and appeared in front of them. It had the ability to leave the soul space on its own. As soon as it appeared, the faces of the tree deity and the god Kylan changed, revealing a look of horror. The evil god glanced at the 2 of them condescendingly. "Hey, 2 lower deities, this is the first time we have met. Let me introduce myself. I am the Divine Emperor who kills the heavens and slaughters the earth. You can call me Lord Evil God, God Kylan. Your mass of godly source of the gods is 1 inch bigger than mine. This is not fair. Tree deity, can you be a man with a conscience? You have picked the 2 most intense masses of godly source of the gods, and you are still thinking about mine? Ahem. I am the Divine Emperor who kills the heavens and slaughters the earth. I will kill the gods and the demons who obstruct me." The evil god coughed to attract the attention of the 2. "I don't care. Anyway, yours is bigger than mine. If you don't give it to me, I will cry. It is very ungentlemanly to make an elegant and noble goddess cry, and you will be condemned by the deities." Then let the condemnation be more violent, you shameless deity who is developing in the opposite direction of elegance and nobility. Ahem. That, I am the Divine Emperor who kills the heavens and slaughters the earth. F***ck, damn Kylan, you are about to die. Why do you need so many godly source of the gods? Make a will for me, hurry up. It will be a waste to give it to you. Ahem. I am the Divine Emperor, shameless rogue, you are greedy for the life-saving item of the Kylan, you are simply. Bang. You 2 bastards. I am the Divine Emperor. The tree deity and god Kylan looked at each other and asked, "Who is this idiot who keeps coughing?" "I don't know him." "I don't know him either." "Oh, then let's go home and sleep." Swoosh. Swoosh. The 2 great deities each took 2 masses of precious godly source of the gods and returned to the 9 jade spiritual pearl and the world of the martial arts tower, leaving the evil god in the wind. His 2 inferior deities who don't know what's good for them. The evil god grinned. "If it was in its heyday, I would not care about them." Su-yu said lightly, "Don't talk nonsense, take this mass of godly source of the gods and refine it, and then leave." The evil god rolled his eyes and looked Su-yu up and down. "Are you really willing to let me go? It is very tiring for me to raise a nest of deities. You should learn to earn your own living," Su-yu sighed. The evil god's face darkened. "A nest? Do you think you are raising a dog?" "It seems that I am a dog." The evil god's face became serious again, and he said, "Are you in big trouble?" Su-yu sighed slightly in his heart. Apart from Yunyazi, the one who probably knew Su-yu the best was this evil god, who was both an enemy and a friend. "Yes, big trouble. If I am not careful, I will die and my soul will be destroyed. I can't control the final situation," Su-yu said. When he left the tomb of the gods, an extremely dangerous battle awaited him. There were many deities involved, and the danger was unpredictable. "So, you sent me away in advance," the evil god said lightly. The evil god said calmly, His huge body squatted down and he snickered. After going through so many storms, are you still worried about the present? Su Yu smiled bitterly. Only this time I have no confidence. The evil god played with the god source origin and threw it back to Su Yu. You can refine it yourself. Although the effect on prospective deities is weak, it is not a bad idea to increase your strength. Since the effect on me is weak, why waste it? Su Yu shook his head and silently took out a book. It was the Psychic Divine Book that he got from Qin Feichen. Because many martial arts were recorded in the book, a trace of spiritual wisdom was born in the book, and it could judge the flaws in the technique. This thing was so precious that the family of the book deity had only accumulated 2 or 3 books in such a long time. Seeing that Su Yu was determined, the evil god smiled and grabbed the god source origin. In that case, let's say goodbye. Su Yu looked at the book and did not look up. Well, goodbye. The evil god looked at Su Yu and stopped talking. Finally, it turned into a sigh. Sometimes, don't force yourself too much. After saying that, it turned into a blood light and disappeared. Su Yu put down the book, and there was a sense of emptiness in his heart. A faint, bitter smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Why would he want to force himself? In the face of a great enemy, Su Yu swept away his thoughts and focused on reading the Psychic Divine Book. After thinking for a long time, Su Yu inserted the 9 dragons' devil-subduing art into it. The Psychic Divine Book immediately shook slightly. On the cover of the book, a mouth appeared, spitting out mechanical words. Mixed techniques. The first 8 levels are at the mythical level, and the last level is a deity-level technique from the basic chapter of the Holy Demon Summoning Technique of the Royal Family of the Demon World. Pitter-patter. Su Yu's hand trembled, and he almost dropped the book on the ground. He had long felt that the last level of the 9 dragons' devil-subduing art was very strange. The first 8 levels were all about summoning demonic dragons condensed from demonic energy, but the last level summoned living creatures from the demon world. According to Su Yu's control, the summoned creatures from the demon world were weak and strong. The weak ones were like demonic crows, and the strong ones were like the 9-headed demonic dragons. According to the strength of the bloodline of the gods and demons, the Holy Demon Summoning Technique can summon creatures of different strength. If it contains the bloodline of the gods and demons, this technique can be used to the extreme, summoning deity-level demons to descend to fight. The secret technique of the royal family of the demon world? Hearing this, Su Yu's heart thumped. Chapter 1171. Apart from those who possess the bloodline of gods and devils, any other living beings who cultivate this technique will suffer a backlash from the technique and be devoured by the summoned devils. Their cultivation value is 0. Living beings that were not descendants of godfiends would not be acknowledged by the summoned beings when they cultivated. This also explained why the Buddha suffered a backlash when he cultivated to perfection. Then why can I? Su Yu thought about it. He had obtained 3 drops of the blood of the gods and demons, which had been integrated into the divine 9-dragon cauldron. Finally, it had been integrated into Su Yu's bloodline. Could this be the reason why he did not suffer from the backlash? If I have enough blood of the gods and demons, I should be able to use the sacred demon summoning technique without any worries, Su Yu thought to himself. However, Su Yu was not stupid enough to use this technique in the Great Eastern Alliance. This was the secret of the royal family of the demon dimension. If Su Yu used it, it would be strange if he was not regarded as a demon. At that time, he would not be able to explain himself, and Qin Feichen and the others would not need to play any tricks to kill Su Yu. I must not use this technique unless I have no other choice, Su Yu thought to himself. Putting away the Psychic Divine Book, Su Yu quietly thought about countermeasures. What I need most is time. I don't know how the Ghost Prison's Great Emperor's task is going. If it is successful, maybe I can get out of danger this time. The Ghost Prison's Great Emperor had not appeared for a long time. He had gone somewhere to handle an extremely important matter. Originally, it was a way out that Su Yu had prepared for himself, but now it seemed like he had prepared it a little too late, and time was of the essence. Now, Qin Feichen must be complaining to the various deities about me killing Qin Kwa. If I go out without any preparation, I will definitely be killed by Qin Feichen and the relevant deities first, causing Su Yu to lose the ability to defend himself. Su Yu looked at the tomb. It was a safe place for the time being. No one would have thought that Su Yu was in the tomb of the god. In the Great Eastern Alliance, there was a moderate earthquake among the deities. Many deities received Qin Feichen's message and exposed Su Yu's killing of the law enforcers. If there was no evidence, they could not be bothered. Qin Kuo was a member of the Qin family. Had Su Yu not used a knife to kill the Qin family members? However, Qin Feichen really had evidence, and it was irrefutable evidence. It was a light returning mirror, and within it, a brief moving image was clearly displayed. One person knocked Qin Kuo to the ground and took away his soul. Who else could it be other than Su Yu? Combined with the secret news that Su Yu came from the Jojo Cavern world, it was almost certain that Su Yu was the murderer who killed the law enforcers. Even though some gods questioned why there was only this part and not the cause and effect, Qin Feichen used the excuse that he had not returned to the previous scenes as an excuse. Although the deities didn't want to punish Su Yu, they couldn't turn a blind eye to the evidence that Qin Feichen had. In desperation, many deities met up and summoned Su Yu to hear the news. In the end, to the great surprise of all the deities and Qin Feichen, Su Yu had disappeared. More accurately, it had disappeared. Whether it was the Crane deity's family or the deity's regions, Su Yu's aura had disappeared. Did he know the news in advance and escaped from the Great Eastern Alliance? Qin Feichen's expression remained unchanged. The Glaze Fairy deity also felt troubled. They were fully prepared to launch a fatal blow to Su Yu. Even the Glaze Fairy deity had been lurking in the Crane deity's family for a long time. Once Su Yu's crime of killing a law enforcer was proven, she would immediately execute him to silence him. However, no one had expected Su Yu to go missing. This unexpected situation was beyond Qin Feichen and the Glaze Fairy deity's expectation. Strengthen the surveillance of the Crane deity's family. Anyone who enters or leaves must be reported in detail and in time. The Glaze Fairy deity's face darkened. This time, she had bet the whole family. Failure was absolutely not allowed. If Su Yu escaped and never returned to the Great Eastern Alliance, it would be fine. However, if he came back suddenly one day and revealed the truth to the public, it would be a disaster for the Book deity's family and the Crane deity's family. The Crane deity's family was also nervous. "Brother Yang Tai, have you found out the whereabouts of our feather god?" Hirushu was very polite and anxious to Yang Tai, who came to visit him. The news that the feather god had killed a law enforcer had been leaked to the Crane deity's family by some deities. They asked Su Yu to escape as soon as possible. However, Su Yu disappeared directly. After Yang Tai learned about the situation, he secretly launched an intelligence network to search for Su Yu. However, it turned out that nothing was found. It seems Su Yu had disappeared from the Great Eastern Alliance out of thin air. My people checked all the divine bone ships that left the continent in the last 2 months. There was no record of the feather god boarding the ships. Moreover, the feather god never came back after leaving the carnival of all gods. Logically, if he got the news in advance, he would only be safe if he escaped from the Great Eastern Alliance. It is really puzzling that he disappeared in this way. Yang Tai sighed. In fact, as smart as Yang Tai was, he had already thought of a possible hiding place. There was only one place where Su Yu had never left the Great Eastern Alliance and couldn't be found by the deities. The cavern world of the tombs of all gods. That place was blocked by a powerful enchantment. Even the senses of the deities couldn't penetrate it. This was the only way to explain Su Yu's disappearance. However, Yang Tai wasn't going to tell anyone, not even the Crane deity's family. Once the news was leaked, Suyu would be killed or injured 100 times for breaking into the tombs of the gods, let alone the evidence of Qin Feichen's crime. After all, there were many celestial energy spheres in the tombs of the gods, which even the deities coveted. Hirushu said bitterly. No matter whether Suyu escaped or not, it would be a devastating blow to the Crane deity's family. Don't worry, Master He. I will send some experts from the All-Access family here to prevent the Crane deity's family from harming the Crane deity's family. At least before the Feather God comes back, I will try my best to ensure the safety of the Crane deity's family. Yang Tai said. Hirushu's eyes lit up. You mean the Feather God will come back? Yang Tai said with a comforting smile. Do you think the Feather God will just leave like this? Since he set foot in the Great Eastern Alliance, he had never suffered any losses. I hope so, Hirushu said uneasily. Yang Tai said goodbye to Suyu. After leaving the Crane deity's family, he said with a deep sigh, Suyu, this time you are facing a great challenge. Even if my father interceded for you, I am afraid it won't help. If you can't find a way, you can hide there for several years. When everything calms down, I will find a way to get you out of the Great Eastern Alliance secretly. From the initial competition to today's admiration, Yang Tai had a good impression of Suyu. It was a pity that such a person was killed by a villain like Qin Feichen. In fact, Yang Tai had no confidence that Suyu could survive this challenge. After all, Suyu's weakness had been caught. 2 months later, Suyu had disappeared for 4 months. In the God of Instruments cavern world, Wang Yunxian was scratching his ears and cheeks anxiously. Alas! What should I do? What should I do? How can I save Suyu? Even the top 9 gods don't have the power to pardon it, and my old man doesn't have the ability to do so. What worries me most is that we don't even know where he has gone. This is the most difficult thing to do. If he escapes from the Great Eastern Alliance, it will be fine. If he doesn't, we will be doomed. Wang Yunxian heard from the God of Instrument that Suyu was listed as a fugitive under the strong suggestion of the Glaze Fairy deity, because they couldn't find Suyu for a long time. Any deity who found Suyu must capture him alive. Otherwise, he would be regarded as an accomplice. Therefore, no matter which cavern world Suyu showed up in, he would be found out immediately. According to the God of Instrument, they didn't want to arrest Suyu, but this was their limit. Not only did the Glaze Fairy deity's family put pressure on the ultimate deity, but this matter was also heard by the Dakini. She said the rules couldn't be broken, so they had to issue the arrest order. How hateful! If he was here, the Great Eastern Alliance would be provoked again and again. However, the hypocrites of the Book deity's family forced Suyu into this situation. Wang Yunxian was full of hatred. The arrest order was announced to the world. From the deities to the descendants of the deities, to the people in the streets, everyone was arguing about Suyu. Suyu, a rising deity who was favored by many deities, was wanted by the alliance of 100 deities because he killed a law enforcement officer in the past. Some people felt it was a pity. After all, Suyu was born in a poor family. It was a miracle that he could be recognized by the deities in such a short time. However, the deities were jealous of him. His mistake was exposed by the Book deity's family. In my opinion, the Book deity's family is really despicable. Tell me, the Feather God is fine. First, he doesn't harm people, and second, he doesn't harm ordinary living beings. Step by step, he gains the recognition of the gods by relying on his intelligence and talent. Who did he offend? Why are the people of the Book deity's family so vicious that they want to kill the Feather God? I've heard that during the Carnival of All Gods, the gods in the tombs of all gods will release their godly source essences to nourish the continent and bless the living beings. However, the Book deity's family hasn't released any godly source essences for the continent for 10 generations, which means hundreds of thousands of years. I also heard about this. Many descendants of deities said that the Book deity's family is not loyal to the Great Eastern Alliance. It is very likely that they are a traitor family. These shameless dogs. Each of them is sanctimonious. They enjoy the peace of the Great Eastern Alliance, and are worshipped by the people of the Great Eastern Alliance. However, they betray us and don't regard themselves as members of the Great Eastern Alliance. In this case, they should get out of here. Why are they still shamelessly staying in the Great Eastern Alliance? That's right. The book deity's family was a bunch of animals worse than pigs and dogs. But I heard that it was the will of the Dakini, the king of the gods. She was broad-minded and loved the world. She believed that everything should be influenced by love. Maybe she thought that the family of the book deity could be enlightened. Everyone felt aggrieved when they heard this, but there was nothing they could do. After all, it was Mother Voidwalker. No matter how displeasing her actions were, as living beings of the mortal world, they couldn't stop her. Bang! In the private room next door, Qin Feichen's face turned red and he slammed the table angrily. Today, Luli and the descendants of the Glaze Fairy deity's family were invited to drink and discuss Su Yu's whereabouts. As it turned out, before the wine was even warmed up, he heard the drinkers outside cursing the book deity's family. Qin Feichen was furious. What kind of world was this? The book deity's family had been destroyed by Su Yu. Almost all of his family members had been killed. Even their ancestral tombs had been smashed by Su Yu. It was the book deity's family that had suffered from Su Yu's devastation. Why was the book deity's family being blamed in the street rumors? Brother Qin, don't mind them. They are just a group of ordinary people. They have been dissatisfied with our deity's family for a long time. So what? They are just a group of ants being ruled by us. Let's discuss Su Yu's possible whereabouts. Qin Feichen suppressed his anger. Brother Qin, after almost half a year of investigation, we think Su Yu probably didn't escape from the Great Eastern Alliance, Luli said. Qin Feichen was surprised. Who are you? Is he hiding in the continent? Luli nodded. Yes. I secretly sent law enforcers to investigate the divine bone ships that entered and left the Great Eastern Alliance in the past half a year. There was no trace of Su Yu. So, we can infer that Su Yu is still in the Great Eastern Alliance. As one of the 6 law enforcers of the Law Enforcement Alliance, Luli could easily mobilize law enforcers to conduct secret investigations. Although the All-Access Chamber of Commerce tried to stop her and refused to cooperate with her, they were finally intimidated by the authority of the law enforcers. It took them 4 months to rule out the possibility that Su Yu had left the Great Eastern Alliance. Then, where is he? Qin Feichen was suddenly nervous. If Su Yu found a deity, told the truth and got the protection of that deity, Luli said, there is only one place. The Tomb of the Gods. He is very likely to be hiding in there. What? Not only Qin Feichen, but also the others were shocked. How could they hide in there? Let alone whether they have the ability to open the passage. Even if they do, the slightest movement of the enchantment will be enough to alert the deities. Luli said calmly, if there is a deity to help, it should not be difficult to open a passage. As for the movement of the enchantment, what if there is a more powerful deity outside the enchantment to cover for them? Hearing this, everyone gasped. Didn't it mean that Su Yu had planned to hide in the Tomb of the Gods a long time ago? However, Qin Feichen thought it was very possible, especially after he had a profound understanding of Su Yu's intelligence. Bang! Then what are you waiting for? Ask Uncle Lu Xian to guard there immediately. As soon as Su Yu appears, he will die without a burial place. Breaking into the Tomb of the Gods, humph, even if he is killed on the spot, no deity will dare to say a word for him. Lu Li smiled meaningfully. Don't worry, Father will not only go alone, but also prepared a big gift for Su Yu. Even if there is a deity to protect him, he will not survive. At the border of the Great Eastern Alliance, a warship broke through the Star River and hurried to the shore. 2 dust fairies, a man and a woman, landed in a flash. They were the Ghost Prison's great emperor and Jian Wusheng. In the Tomb of the Gods, Su Yu, who had been practicing silently for 4 months, suddenly lit up the jade pendant tied to his waist. Su Yu slowly opened his eyes, which were shining brightly. He breathed a sigh of relief. Is it finally going to start? The family of the book deity, the family of the glaze fairy deity, and the families who secretly help me, will I be doomed eternally, or are you playing with fire? Standing up and shaking the dust off his body, Su Yu stepped out of the tomb of the gods with a fierce light in his eyes. A war that shocked the Great Eastern Alliance was about to begin. Chapter 1172. You're finally out. I thought you died inside. Xing Yuanxin stood outside the tomb of the god of sin with her arms crossed. Su Yu asked nonchalantly, Did you find any clues? You could say yes, but you could also say no. Xing Yuanxin sighed. I found some clues. As early as the time of the 6th generation of the glaze fairy deity, the glaze fairy deity's family and the book deity's family had been in close contact with each other for a major matter. Su Yu's gaze shifted. He had actually found a clue. After pondering for a moment, Su Yu said, When you said we'll handle important matters together, do you mean building the book deity's treasury? Yes. Xing Yuanxin nodded. Su Yu said, If I'm not mistaken, the glaze fairy deity is protecting the book deity's treasury like that. It's obvious that she's wary of this item, unlike the other deities. It turns out that the glaze fairy deity's family also participated in the construction. So, what does this have to do with this case? Xing Yuanxin was silent for a long time before she said, From the funerary objects of the previous deities of the glaze fairy deity, I accidentally found out that they didn't suddenly think of building this book deity's treasury, but Su Yu's eyes flickered with shrewd light. I was instructed by the deity behind the scenes. Xing Yuanxin was shocked. Did you also find clues in the tomb of the book god? Su Yu shook his head and said, I didn't find any useful clues. Then how did you know? Xing Yuanxin tilted her head in confusion. Su Yu said, I guessed it. It was very simple. How much pressure did it take to build such a taboo thing that could spy on the secrets of the gods and endanger the entire Great Eastern Alliance? Without the support of a powerful god, it would have been destroyed by the angry gods as soon as it was built. How could it have waited until today? Xing Yuanxin patted the dust off her body and stared at Su Yu angrily. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I stayed in my grave for 2 months. But, if I told you, would you believe me? Su Yu asked. Then, have you found out who the mastermind is? Xing Yuanxin's expression turned serious, and she nodded slightly. Yes, I have. Su Yu's heart shuddered slightly when he heard the unusual tone of his voice. It seemed like he had found an extraordinary person. It's the 4th-ranked Rakshasa deity family, Xing Yuanxin said. Rakshasa deity? Of course, Su Yu knew that the deity who was rumored to be the most murderous among the 100 deities was a human. However, he cultivated the Rakshasa Tao. He was ferocious, and his battle prowess was ferocious. Among the 100 gods, he was ranked 7th. Regarding this deity, Su Yu had also obtained some unofficial information that wasn't recorded in the official history. The current Rakshasa god had been captured by the demonic god for 10 years. Later on, the Dakini had rescued her. Rumor has it that the Rakshasa deity gave birth to a son who was the combination of a demonic deity and a human deity. It was obvious what she had experienced in the devil world. After the birth of the hybrid of the demon and human god, its whereabouts were unknown. Since then, it had become a mystery. There were no records of it in any historical record. Su Yu squinted his eyes. From the words of the Central Prefecture's king before his death, Su Yu knew his mother was a human god. Rakshasa deity. It was the mother of the Central Prefecture's king. A baby born from the devil world, a family of gods that had been secretly holding the secrets of the gods for generations. If one still thought that the existence of the book deity's treasury was accidental and harmless, how naive would one be? The existence of the book deity's treasury was to contain the secrets of the gods, to make them surrender, or to find their fatal weaknesses. If all these secrets were to fall into the hands of the demons, how much combat power would the gods who had all their weaknesses be left with? The devil world is determined to destroy me. They have planted so many people in my great Eastern alliance. How is it a family of gods with high positions? Su Yu felt a chill down his spine. However, this strengthened Su Yu's determination. He had to carry out a bloodbath in the Great Eastern Alliance to wash away the terrible hidden dangers. Miss Yuanxin, if the Xing deity finds out, what will she do? Su Yu asked. Xing Yuanxin clenched her fist. Things had developed to this point, and it was more serious than she had expected. Not only great families like the Glaze Fairy deity and the Book deity were involved, but there was also a hidden mastermind behind the scenes. The Rakshasa deity's family. I don't know. My mother can't make the decision on her own. She will definitely discuss it with the all-access merchant god and the Dakini. Only with the three great deities taking action at the same time can it be possible to uproot the fourth-ranked Rakshasa deity's family. It seemed that Xing Yuanxin had also speculated that the Central Prefecture's king was the descendant of the missing human and demon deities, and the one controlling the rescue of Jiuzhou was most likely this Rakshasa deity. Su Yu pondered for a long time and sighed. If the three deities take action, it will be easy, but I'm afraid we won't have a chance to report the situation to the three deities. What? Xing Yuanxin followed Su Yu's gaze and looked outside the enchantment. Her expression changed slightly. As a prospective deity, she felt the presence of the deities. Moreover, it was the Glaze Fairy deity. It seems that our intentions have been detected by them. Su Yu sighed. Of course, he knew that the Glaze Fairy deity was coming for him. Xing Yuanxin looked dignified and said in a low voice, "Sure enough, we have been swept into this deep pool of water." With a flip of her hand, a threaded stone appeared in Xing Yuanxin's palm. "This was given to me by my mother before we left. If we are discovered, use this stone to teleport to other divine realms. We must not be discovered that we are in the cavern world of the tombs of the gods. I didn't expect this to save our lives." Su Yu was not surprised. The Xing deity allowed Xing Yuanxin to enter, and she must have given him thousands of methods. "This is a part of my mother's body, and it contains the mighty divine power of the Xing deity. It will be easy to break the enchantment and teleport us out of this place. However, after we leave this place, the three of us will have to escape separately. We need to seek support from the deities we are familiar with," Xing Yuanxin said. The original body of the Xing deity was a stone that absorbed the essence of the sun and the moon. It was called the Holy Stone. A part of her body contained unimaginable power. Su Yu nodded. "Okay." Noticing the movement of the two of them, the Jing deity reluctantly walked out of a tomb of the gods and joined Su Yu and others. Of course, in front of Xing Yuanxin, he naturally could not show a happy expression. Instead, he said, "We are surrounded, and there are many strong people outside." Xing Yuanxin nodded. "Don't worry, my mother said that she would keep you safe. After we leave this place, we will act separately. Don't be caught by the people outside." The Jing deity naturally agreed. Activating the stone, the three of them were swept away by the ripples. The enchantment of the outside world was nothing, and they were directly teleported to another divine realm. The Glaze Fairy deity, who was waiting outside the cavern world, suddenly looked up at the sky, and her face changed slightly. "This is the breath of the Xing deity. Why did she appear in the tombs of the gods?" However, the Glaze Fairy deity had no time to think about it, because in that breath, there was the breath of her target, Su Yu. Swish! The Glaze Fairy deity moved an entire divine realm in a flash, chasing after the breath of Su Yu and others. She sighed in her heart. After all, she had underestimated Su Yu. She did not catch him on the spot in the tombs of the gods, so she had lost the crime of punishing him. However, it made no difference. Su Yu was going to die now anyway. Swoosh! Su Yu and the other two teleported to the adjacent water world, and without saying anything, they immediately fled separately. Although the Glaze Fairy deity sensed the breath of Xing Yuanxin and the Jing deity, she had no time to think and caught up with Su Yu in a flash. Appearing in front of Su Yu, the Glaze Fairy deity sneered. "We meet again, feathered deity." Su Yu just smiled, without any extra expression. The Glaze Fairy deity showed a playful expression. "Don't you want to ask why I am chasing you, and what are you going to do if I catch up with you?" Su Yu smiled lightly. "You are chasing me, is it a courtship? Even if you catch up with me, I am not going to agree to your courtship. Even if you are a god, I will not let go of my bottom line as a man." Ha 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 ha. The Glaze Fairy deity was not angry but laughed. "At this time, you can still calmly tease the gods. In fact, if we were not on the opposite side, I would also like you like the other gods. Unfortunately, you have to die. Because I know the secret of your collusion with the demons, you expose me to the gods, and then I have no chance to defend myself before you assassinate me?" The Glaze Fairy deity's smile suddenly disappeared. "You know all about it? Impossible. Did someone go to the cavern world of the tombs of the gods to inform Su Yu? Was it Xing Yuanxin and the Jing deity? With your cunning schemes, I can guess what you're thinking even with my toes," Su Yu said indifferently. The Glaze Fairy deity was a little surprised. She knew that this person was smart, but she did not expect him to be so smart. Looking at Su Yu's calm expression, the Glaze Fairy deity felt a little uneasy, as if things were not under her control. "Humph, no matter where you get your calmness from, if you want to find the gods one by one to defend yourself and ask for their support, don't even think about it." Su Yu showed a hint of sarcasm. "Find the gods to defend themselves one by one? Sorry, I never thought of such a troublesome, dangerous, and inefficient way from the beginning." Su Yu had no way of knowing how many gods had conspired with the Glaze Fairy deity, the Book deity family, and the Rakshasa deity. If he happened to find one of them, wouldn't he be a lamb walking into a tiger's mouth? The Glaze Fairy deity's heart was filled with uneasiness. She could not guess Su Yu's intentions. Fortunately, Su Yu answered for her, his eyes shining with confidence. "I want all the gods in the sky, all of them, to come to see me in person." What? Even the Glaze Fairy deity could not help but feel shocked. Was it possible for all the gods to come to see Su Yu on their own initiative? The uneasiness in her heart grew stronger. Staring at Su Yu, the Glaze Fairy deity felt more and more that they had neglected the most important thing. Su Yu had never been a person who could be controlled. "Then I will make you disappear from the world now," the Glaze Fairy deity shouted coldly. Without any hesitation, she moved her mind. Suddenly, from Su Yu's body to his soul, there was a terrible shock, and he would be destroyed in the next moment. In her mind, Su Yu was like an ant on the ground. No matter how he resisted, it was futile. This difference between gods and mortals, Su Yu vividly experienced at this moment. Chapter 1173. The boundless green surrounding her body was like a holy radiance, which drove away the thoughts of destroying Su Yu. "What are you doing? I haven't got my husband's property yet. If you kill him, what will happen to his property? At least give him some time to write a will for me, okay?" The elegant and natural woman spoke with a completely different image. The Glaze Fairy deity's pupils shrank sharply. A new deity. Among the 100 deities, there was no tree goddess. The woman in front of her was the tree goddess who had never appeared before. "Well, since you know I am a new deity, why don't you give me a red envelope as a gift?" The tree goddess smiled and stretched out her small palm. The Glaze Fairy deity was shocked. No wonder Su Yu was not afraid. It turned out that he had found a deity somewhere. The strength of this deity was far above the Jing deity. This deity, Su Yu, is currently wanted by 100 deities of the Great Eastern Alliance. No matter what your relationship with him is, if you are willing to stop now, the alliance of 100 deities will not make things difficult for you. "Please leave now," the Glaze Fairy deity said. The tree goddess didn't receive a gift, so she said fiercely, Little devil. You are not willing to give me anything, but you want me to throw away the owner. Humph, I am not that stupid. Owner. The glaze fairy deity grinned. What a deity's spiritual pet without self-respect. Although she thought the tree goddess was crazy, she couldn't give up in the face of a great plan. If so, I am sorry. After saying that, she took the initiative to attack. Most of the fights between deities were fought with the divine path, which was invisible and untouchable. It was hidden in the invisible Great Way. Suyu only felt dizzy, and the tree goddess and the glaze fairy deity disappeared in the sky at the same time. He didn't feel any fluctuations anymore. However, the extremely strong divine oppression told Suyu that the two deities were fighting fiercely. After a while, with a bang, the glaze fairy deity showed up with golden blood at the corner of her mouth. She was still standing in the same place, as if she hadn't moved at all. In front of Suyu, the elegant figure of the tree goddess appeared, but she was playing with a pink bra in her palm. She shook it in her hand and said with a smile, "You are so old, but you are still wearing pink tsk. The glaze fairy deity, who was on the other side of the river, blushed. She was both angry and embarrassed. Shameless! Suyu glanced at the red undergarment and was speechless. Is the tree goddess so shameless and shameless even in a fight? Tearing off a woman's bra? However, the situation of the fight between the two sides was clear at a glance. The restored strength of the tree god actually firmly suppressed Luli. The glaze fairy deity was a powerful deity that ranked in the top 10. Tsk. How dare you try to kill my husband with such meager strength? Let those two bastards hiding in the dark attack together. I'm going to strip you naked. The tree goddess glanced at her side coldly. The divine light swept across, and a large piece of emerald light suddenly flickered from the endless distance. Then, a towering giant tree almost covered the entire cavern world. A dense mass of leaves shot out from the tree, and two gods, both shocked and enraged, emerged from somewhere. Water god, stone god? Suyu revealed a calm smile at the corners of his mouth. It was as if everything was within his expectations, yet it was also as if he was a prey that had stepped into a trap. The two of them flew near the glaze fairy deity while sweeping away the terrifying leaf. They stood next to her and stared at the tree goddess with extreme vigilance. Who the hell are you? The glaze fairy deity's heart sank to the bottom. She thought the deity Suyu found was just SOSO. She didn't expect the deity Suyu found was not a match for him at all. Based on her intuition, the strength of this tree goddess was enough to rank in the top 9 in the Great Eastern Alliance. The tree goddess threw the glaze fairy deity's bra to Suyu casually. Take it. When you are lonely at night, you can use it to quench your thirst. Suyu was quite immune to her words. Hearing this, he couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. For the tree goddess, the lower limit was something she could break through easily. Nobody could guess where her lower limit was. Shameless! The glaze fairy deity said angrily, Water god, stone god, this tree goddess is very weird. Let's attack her together and stall her. As for Suyu, someone will deal with him. The three deities attacked together, and their divine paths attacked the tree goddess suddenly. The tree goddess was not afraid at all. Fine. I have just recovered, so I will exercise my body with you useless deities first. After being nailed to the throne for thousands of years, the tree goddess had been bored to death. All of a sudden, the four deities started to fight invisibly. Their divine power was more than twice as strong as before. Even Suyu, who was used to the divine power of deities, found it a little difficult to fight against them. Swoosh! Swoosh! At the same time, several figures attacked from afar. Law enforcer Luli Qin Feichen, and a law enforcement team of about 100 people. As a law enforcer, it was not difficult for Luli to mobilize the law enforcement team to arrest wanted criminals. These 100 people were all trusted subordinate. Otherwise, she could mobilize at least hundreds of thousands of people. Suyu, today you will definitely die. Qin Feichen looked at Su Yu with a hideous smile. However, Su Yu didn't even look at him. For him, he didn't need to pay attention to a dead person. Attack! Kill Su Yu! Lu Li's order was not to capture him, but to kill him on the spot. The 100 law enforcers carried out the order without hesitation, even though they knew it was a violation of the 100 Deities Alliance Treaty. After all, the order issued by the deities was to explode, not to kill. Now, they were openly violating the order of the 100 deities. However, they obeyed Lu Li's order and rushed toward Su Yu. Su Yu was calm and unruffled. He took out the recording jade pendant and recorded the scene of Lu Li's order and the law enforcement team executing the order without hesitation. Well, it doesn't matter even if I kill you publicly now. Su Yu smiled lightly and took out the Marshall Tower world from his arms. One of the layers was opened, and suddenly, several extremely tyrannical auras of dust fairies led a large number of strong people flocked out. The strongest among them was only at the third realm of dust fairies, and the weakest was at the realm of all creations. Their individual strength was far from enough to fight against these 100 people, but there were thousands of them. They were the forces of the Marshall Tower world that Su Yu had secretly cultivated with the resources of the Crane deity family. With the black and white dust fairies as the main force, his realm had improved by 1 or 2 levels. The rest of the region masters also focused on cultivating, and a large number of dust fairies emerged. As for the emergence of the all creations, there were countless. The creatures of Jiuzhou grew up in the declining environment of Jiuzhou for a long time. Suddenly, they received the powerful resources of the Great Eastern Alliance, and their strength skyrocketed. The sudden appearance of so many strong people made Lu Li and Qin Feichen raise their eyebrows. "You have a portable cavern world?" Lu Li was slightly surprised. As a descendant of the gods, it was not difficult to have 1 or 2 cavern worlds. As long as her father was willing to sacrifice a little celestial energy sphere, it was easy to create one. However, the cavern world in Su Yu's hands did not look like a small cavern world. What answered them was the strong people of Jiuzhou who fought bravely. Although the law enforcement team was strong, how could they fight against so many people? As soon as they fought, they were put down, and then there were signs of defeat. Fortunately, their quality was strong, and they quickly resisted the attack, and they were in a stalemate with the strong people of Jiuzhou. "It seems that I need to take action." Lu Li snorted and took out a spear. Her delicate body trembled, and she teleported to stab. Su Yu's face was calm. There was a strange laugh in the Marshall Tower world, and a huge black Kylin with a body size of 30 feet appeared from the Marshall Tower world. Looking at the Kylin, Lu Li's face changed drastically. "The god of the Jiuzhou cavern world, God Kylin? There are quite a number of deities who remember me, an old fellow." Lu Li said, "Aren't you only left with a trace of celestial energy sphere? How can you be so powerful?" The current god Kylin's celestial energy sphere was so powerful that it was no less than an early-stage perspective deity. This was very different from the situation in the rumors. Suddenly, Lu Li thought of something and said in surprise, "Could it be that you took the celestial energy sphere in the tomb of the god of gods?" Hearing this, Qin Feichen was also shocked, and immediately stared at Su Yu, his eyes flashing fiercely. "Su Yu, these celestial energy spheres, where did you get them from?" "Of course, I made use of waste, and I took out the celestial energy spheres of your ancestors." Su Yu did not wait for him to finish asking, and admitted it very readily. Anyway, they were kept, so it was better to save a god who used to be one of the 100 gods. This could be considered a good deed for the ancestors of the Book deity's family. Qin Feichen's lungs were about to explode with anger. These celestial energy spheres had never been released in the past generations, and it was not without any reason. It was a rule set by the Book deities that if one day the current Book deity's celestial energy sphere was damaged and there was an irreparable defect, he would go to the ancestral tomb to absorb the celestial energy sphere of his ancestors. For hundreds of thousands of years, several book deities had encountered similar situations, and they had to sneak into the tomb of the god of gods to absorb the celestial energy sphere of their ancestors. Therefore, out of the 10 tombs of the god of gods, only 5 had a complete celestial energy sphere, because the other 5 had been consumed. However, these celestial energy spheres prepared for the book deities were all taken away by Su Yu. Based on Su Yu's character, he would not leave even the dregs for the book deity's family. What a... Come here, Su Yu said calmly. Qin Feichen clenched his fists tightly, but he forced himself to calm down and did not rush over. Su Yu easily defeated the son of the sword deity, so he was no match for Su Yu at all. Soon, God Kailan and Lu Li began to fight. Both of them were early-stage perspective deities, but God Kailan was a real deity in the past. His experience, magical powers, and reaction time were far beyond that of a prospective deity who had only lived for 100 years. Obviously, Lu Li's cultivation and strength were not inferior to God Kailan's, but the spear in his hand could not touch God Kailan. The two of them fought back and forth, and God Kailan could only laugh strangely. Lu Li was getting more and more frightened, and he gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. At this time, a sad scream spread throughout the water god's cavern world. There was a golden light fluctuation in the sky, and even the clouds turned golden. At the same time, in the water god's cavern world, the mountains, rivers, and all the creatures were mourning the fall of a deity. A deity had fallen, and all the creatures were crying. Layers of golden rain fell from the endless sky, nourishing the mountains, the earth, the creatures, and the plants. Su Yu was delighted to see this. The 9-jade spiritual pearl opened, crazily swallowing the golden rain falling from the sky.